man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
What's up, everybody? Man, what a day. And it's only 1:48 p.m. I mean, just a crazy day going on. I don't know what's up with the Democrats as I get everything set here. All right, so let me just give you a breakdown as to what's happening today. We've got the Doge Subcommittee that's happening at 2 o'clock, which I will bring them up. I'll probably go to the golf course break as I get everything moved in here as soon as they go live, because they do not have a preview screen, so I just have to wait until they go live. And then I have a 2:30 interview scheduled to talk about the Russia-Ukraine thing that's going on. I obviously have to be careful here. Then, so I'll put that on pause, and we'll go right back to it as soon as we're done. And then tonight, President Trump has got some sort of summer soiree happening at the White House, which we will cover that. I'll go live at 6:30 tonight. This is the type of day where it is compelling me to get into an office studio, because I need to have 3 separate individual workstations going so I can stream, the subcommittee meeting. And I also have Howard Lutnick's meeting in the tank here if somehow the subcommittee meeting doesn't work. Plus, I have other news for you. So much going on, and my pledge to you is I'm going to move into an office as soon as possible so that I can have multiple streams running. You guys can pick. I'm going to listen to Barry's live show. I'm going to listen to the live hearing from the subcommittee. I'll jump back and forth. You can do whatever you want. We're going to have all kinds of content flowing simultaneously for you guys to take a look at. In addition, we're going to continue with our night show. Speaking of the night show, I just want to get something off my chest. You ever been to a Chinese buffet? An Asian buffet? Japanese buffet? Sushi? And it's got different foods in it. And as you're walking through that buffet, there's things like, nah, I don't want to eat that. I'm not going to take it. You're in the restaurant. You like the restaurant. You've visited the restaurant many times. But there's only certain things on that buffet that you like. Think of that as this channel. You've been here, you've been a subscriber, you've been following, you've been interacting, but there may be things you don't like. I will never force feed you. And because I make the pledge to never force feed you, I'm asking you to make a pledge. Very simple pledge. If you don't like something, don't watch. I'm letting you know up front, when we start doing Rumble jump overs, there's music. I want to have fun at night. It's after a long day of doing content, and we're going to be doing different things. We're going to be showing movies. We're going to be doing all kinds of different things at night. If you don't like the music, don't come to the party. That's why we're calling it an after party. I don't think bad of you. If, hey, it's not my cup of tea, then don't be your cup of tea. But just to let you know, starting today, the moderators are not going to tolerate people whining and crying about the music. Not going to happen. If you get in there and you think the music is, oh my God, it's Satan's workshop and it's demonic, and don't say it. Don't say it. SB's got an itchy trigger finger, and I think Beth and Roaring Rage are going to have that itchy trigger finger too. Boom. You're done. At least for that night. 24 hours. There's no reason for you to frown upon what other people are enjoying. Don't be that gal. Don't be that guy. You don't like the music? I'm telling you up front now, there's going to be some music. By the way, speaking of music, how can you have problems with people, having fun and remembering that things they did in the 80s or even the 70s and listening to music and having a problem with that music? When you're president, every single rally, and in many other events, maybe even tonight, we'll be playing a song at the end of his event and his campaign rallies. You know the song. I can't play it right now because on YouTube, but you know the song. YMCA. You've heard it. What do you think that is? Who do you think the people are that are singing it? Those people singing that song from way back in the 70s, they're gay. It was a gay anthem. It's the month of Pride, and you will hear it in any of their events. Maybe they don't play it anymore because Trump's playing it. Did you realize that? This is the guy you voted for. This is the guy who you want to lead America, who's doing a great job of it. And he plays a gay anthem as one of his songs. Obviously, he's got the Lee Greenwood song coming in, and he uses YMCA going out. So if you're president, again, we're at that crux here. If your president is saying, you know what, I like music. I like music so much, I'm going to use a gay anthem as one of my songs, my theme songs. If you didn't have a problem with him, then don't have a problem with us playing music at night. And if you do have a problem, I love you. Come on back. Just skip the night version. That way you won't have to say anything bad about other people enjoying things. And that's the last I'm going to say about it. I'm not going to bring it up anymore. I just want to let everybody know, if all of a sudden you're watching and you say something stupid or offensive, don't give me this free speech stuff. Your free speech is now limited in terms of how you are going to act. You are your own boss in this regard. And so if the mods decide, you know what, we're tired of hearing you being a zealot, boom, you're done. At least for 24 hours. All right, so that being said, chat cautiously. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself here. We're amongst friends. There's no reason why we should be fighting. There's no reason why we should be looking down upon anybody in here. There's enough looking down upon with the nuts. Speaking of the nuts, I had to play this because this is the most insane. This will give you a good indication of how crazy these people really are. Listen closely. I hope it's loud enough. It's a very short video. It's about, 30 seconds. I want you to hear this.
Labor, and of course, we have to come to a place in Congress where it is no longer a political issue, but we see it as an existential issue for the country. If we don't have avenues for people to come here legally to work or to build a home here, I'm going to be really crude right now. We're not going to have anybody around to wipe our asses because we don't have enough people.
That is a sitting Democrat congresswoman who said we need to have the newcomers here because if we don't have the newcomers, we're not going to have anybody here to wipe our behinds. But she used the actual word, I won't be that gross. I don't know about you, but South Florida has a lot of newcomers here, mostly legal, but even they have some, as where you are may have newcomers that aren't legal. But not once have I ever said, honey, I'd like to get one of them to come to the house so that they can wipe my behind. This group of Democrats is bat poop crazy. Be concerned. Be very concerned when they start saying something like that. Tonight I'm going to show you some stuff that Chuck Schumer said today, which is absolutely crazy as well. That they want to rename the big beautiful bill into We're All Gonna Die Act. I'm like, what is wrong with these people? What is absolutely wrong with these people? Now, before we get in, I'm doing my sponsor reads a little bit earlier here nowadays in the show. Don't want to forget them. So, as you know, there's a war happening right now, and it's probably not where you think. I'm not talking about Ukraine and Russia. I'm talking about your tummy. It's in your gut. A battle between good and bad bacteria can determine your overall health. Kimchi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition is the fermented superfood your body needs to arm the good guys with the right weapons to defeat the bad actors once and for all. It contains over 900 strains of beneficial bacteria in each capsule. Kimchi 1 supports healthy digestion, fortifies your immune system, and it helps detoxify your body. Kimchi has also been shown to reduce risk of obesity and promote smaller waistlines by curbing appetite and naturally boosting your metabolism. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below, right there, you can see the link, and entering the code BARRY for 25% off your entire order. Or, this is important for an even better deal, they like you to call them so they can educate you and answer any questions you may have. So call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call now at 888-418-6738. All right, so let me go ahead. It is 1:58. I'm going to make sure I have the right feed in place and also get your comments ready. But I want to show you a couple things that popped up. Hold on, let me just make sure that the feed isn't live yet or nothing's happened. 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves for a second as I do this. And all right, so a couple things happened I want to bring to your attention. As I told you, we're going to have this interview with Rebecca, who used to be a defense and intelligence person. Sorry, I've got to hit these windows, make sure everything's okay. All right, so something's happening in Ukraine. A lot's happening in Ukraine. As you know, Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal went over there, and then boom, things happened. And then, of course, you've seen pictures of, for whatever reason, Mike Pompeo is over there now too. This makes no sense whatsoever. And so President Trump posted something which we will talk to Rebecca about, and it's very, very interesting, very, very compelling actually. It says, I just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately an hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. It was a good conversation, and this is interesting, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. So expect in the next, couple days or whatever, things are probably going to go boom over in Ukraine. We also discussed Iran. That's it. Now he's moved on. expect something to happen. Now let's talk about Iran. We also discussed Iran and the fact that time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. I stated to President Putin that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and on this I believe that we were in agreement. President Putin suggested that he will participate in the discussions with Iran and that he could perhaps be helpful in getting this brought to a rapid conclusion. It is my opinion that Iran has been slow-walking their decision on this very important matter, and we will need a definitive answer in a very short period of time. Let's look at the cliff notes here, shall we? If we look at the cliff notes, one of the things I think we can probably read into is Zelensky's a walking dead man. I mean, that was a very short, curt synopsis of what their phone call said, but hey, doesn't look like it's going to be any interim peace, and also, yeah, he's going to punch back. How far will Putin take it? I don't know. But it almost feels to me like, hold on, let me just make sure this thing hasn't started. Give me a second here. It almost, yeah, it's live, but it's not live. Hold on, they're not doing anything yet. 1 second. Okay, so we're ready. When that pops up, we'll go to it live. And as I said, at 2:30, I've got Rebecca coming on, so we'll go ahead and cut to that at about, I don't know, it's about 2:25. We'll take her interview, and you won't miss anything with the Doge Subcommittee. We'll go ahead and be able to talk about it. So as soon as this comes on, we will get to it. But anyway, we're talking about Ukraine and Russia. And at this point, President Trump says, nope. No negotiation, not going to happen anytime in immediate future. And on top of all that, it looks like things aren't going to go well whatsoever. And Putin is going to strike back. So just breathe in, take it in, and understand what's about to happen. Nobody needs to be surprised anymore. President Trump just said, yeah, did he say he's going to? Likely? How did he word it? Let me just put that back up so you guys can see it. It says, it was a good President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. He will have to. He is going to. That's kind of scary. So tell your friends, tell your family, do whatever you need to do. Understand at this point, it's inevitable. There is going to be an airstrike or some sort of strike back on Ukraine. It's going to be big. He's not going to take them blowing up all these airplanes and billions of dollars of bombers lightly. So pray for people in Ukraine, the innocents who may get caught up in this. But as they say, war is hell. And we're about to see hell unleashed. That's what it appears to be at this point, that's where it's going. So sad. So very sad. All right, so let's continue while we're waiting. Again, this is about Russia being reported by Mario Nawfal. Russia's warning, all options are on the table after bomber attacks. Now, let's understand, if he used the word all, that means all. He may go as far as a limited nuclear strike, which would be incredibly disastrous for that country. Ukraine just hit deep, targeting Russian nuclear-capable bombers and blowing up key bridges. Moscow is not happy. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, we urge London and Washington to react in such a way as to stop further escalation. All options are on the table. I hope you read into that what it says. All options are on the table. And the fact that he's using words like all options, means that one that we really don't want to see. So what will happen in that regard? What will happen if Putin pushes the big button? Well, as of right now, Ukraine is not in NATO. And I don't know what the rules of engagement are for other things of that nature. If somebody uses nuclear weapons, and maybe we'll talk to Rebecca about that when she comes on as well, because that's kind of scary. Very scary. Get your ducks in a row. Understand what you've got to do next. Now I want to, while we're waiting, because these guys are usually like 15 minutes late or so, I want to show you something interesting. And there's a thread. Let me see if I can find it. Elon Musk, as you know, who's been vocal about not liking the big beautiful bill, and I'm telling you, wink wink, just wink wink, we might be looking at a head fake. But he put this out. He says interest payments already consume 25% of all government revenue. If the massive deficit spending continues, there will only be money for interest payments and nothing else. No Social Security, no medical, no defense, nothing. And he's absolutely right. And Democrats should know this as well. There's nothing there. If we don't do something about this deficit, it's going to eat us, consume us forever. We'll be done. If you've ever had a credit card at 20 or 25% interest, you know, even though you get a little bit of it, it's still, the meter's still running, right? All right, so then he's been showing this all over the place. This one here he posted, and it says, flatten the curve. Let's flatten the curve. And he retweets this, and it's talking about how the national debt has just continued to skyrocket. This is where it used to be, and now it's off the charts. All right. Now let's look at something else he said, and I want to bring this up. Where is it? He said something yesterday that I wanted to highlight to people because it was very interesting when he said it. Okay, this one. This is debt slavery for the American people. The accrued interest, Senator Mike Lee says, the accrued interest on the national debt now exceeds $1 trillion a year, more than we spend on national defense. And yet Congress continues to add to the debt at an astounding rate of $2 trillion per year. I told you yesterday, be careful in jumping into this news that he's got a problem with the big beautiful bill. Instead, I'd like to see you begin using your head and thinking, why would Elon Musk be saying this? Well, I think Donald Trump gave you a little bit of a hint. Here's that little bit of a hint I was waiting for to see if he was going to come out with something like this. So he's responding to Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren says, Donald Trump and I agree the debt limit should be scrapped to prevent an economic catastrophe. Let's pass a bipartisan bill and get rid of it forever. But jacking up the debt limit by $4 trillion to fund more tax breaks for billionaires is an outrage. And see, I think what President Trump and Elon are doing are baiting these people into a humongous bear trap. I told you this last week. I'm like, you guys looking up who we owe this debt to? Who is it that we owe all this money to? What would happen if we just said, sorry, we're not paying it. Let's go ahead and scrap the debt limit. Let's not even worry about it. Oh, well, you're going to ruin the full faith and credit of the United States. Well, we don't need credit if we're not borrowing anything. We've got enough here that could sustain ourselves where we shouldn't be borrowing from all over the place. All right, they're opening. I'll come back to that. We got a break for Rebecca, but while she's doing the introductions, let me show you specifically what President Trump said. I am very pleased to announce that after all of these years, I agree with Senator Warren on something. The debt limit should be entirely scrapped to prevent an economic catastrophe. It is too devastating to put in the hands of political people that may want to use the horrendous effect it would have on our country and indirectly even the world. As to Senator Warren's second statement on the $4 trillion, I like that also, but it would have to be done over a period of time, as short as possible. Let's get together, Republican and Democrat, and do this. So if we're not going to borrow anything else, what do we do with the existing debt? That's step two. Hey, let's stop. Let's scrap the debt limit. Let's not keep borrowing like crazy. Take these cuts, take this away. And my feeling is we're about to see a financial reset in this country. A financial reset where President Trump says, we're going to suspend all debt payments. We don't need to borrow anything. Don't be surprised if that happens. All right, so we got the Doge hearing starting, and at 2:25 or so, I'm going to break for Rebecca's interview, and then we'll go right back to the Doge. So this should be enlightening. This should be fun because it's talking about cuts. It's talking about cuts because of the newcomers. It's talking about all the different things that Doge has put together. And so you're going to have that round robin of idiot Democrats who are reclaiming my time and Republicans talking about stripping and doing away with so much of the funding. Let's listen in for a little bit here.
Turn around and donate to Democrat political campaigns. This intricate web of connections is how elected and appointed Democrat officials and allied NGOs work together. Federal agencies fund the NGOs, and the NGOs shape the agency's behavior. It can be hard to tell where the government ends and the NGO begins. The nonprofits essentially serve as an arm of the government. To put it another way, if the permanent bureaucracy is the de facto fourth branch of the government, then these leftist NGOs are the fifth. Our witnesses today will describe how the left has funneled hundreds of billions of U.S. tax dollars through NGOs, discuss the destructive policies this has enabled, and detail the damage done to our country. So-called green energy NGOs are among the worst offenders. They have used federal dollars to destabilize the U.S. power grid and energy dominance, while raising energy costs on Americans. The Biden EPA steered billions in U.S. tax dollars to leftist climate NGOs via a $20 billion slush fund known as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, GGRF. Like-minded nonprofits were enlisted to implement President Biden's Green New Deal scam. While we are grateful to the Trump administration and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin for shutting it down and quickly terminating these grants, further accountability is necessary. The full Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is investigating Biden's GGRF. We know that all the awardees are connected to both the Biden administration and Democratic donors, and that they sit on each other's boards in an incestuous circle. Today, we will shine light on this dynamic. Take, for example, who the Democrats choose to bring in as their witnesses. Someone so entrenched into the system that she was the director of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, a leader of a housing organization that lobbied for more federal spending, and now a nationally renowned nonprofit leader who donates to Democrat campaigns. Other examples include many green NGOs that employ former Biden administration officials. These people wrote the rules for this climate grift in which they now partake. As government officials, they were paid by taxpayers to conduct the grift. Now taxpayers are funding the grant awards that pay their salaries. This cash grab was so large that some nonprofits were birthed solely to get in on the game. One newly created nonprofit, Power Forward, received an astonishing $2 billion from Biden's EPA, despite having just been formed. Power Forward is now part of a network tied to Rewiring America, which employs Stacey Abrams, the twice-failed Democrat candidate for governor in Georgia, and voting rights activist. After all, however, she would have been a good hire given her history of running her own nonprofit, which spent $3.2 million on campaign resources instructing voters to support her campaign, all of which are prohibited actions for nonprofits. Consequently, her nonprofit was levied the largest penalty ever imposed in Georgia's history for violating state campaign finance laws. This is the circle of life. Climate and energy is just one area where the entrenched bureaucrats and political appointees have partnered with NGOs to do the left's bidding. Illegal immigration is another. Federally funded NGOs have egregiously abused tax dollars to fund the invasion at our southern border by providing housing, transportation, legal services, and more to shepherd illegal aliens across our border and settle them in our country. These NGOs support the cartels in their mission to invade our country. Under the guise of assisting migrants, these groups have placed criminal networks, dangerous gangs, and human traffickers into American towns and cities. Think about this. The American people's hard-earned taxpayer dollars have been used to literally import rapists, murderers, and terrorists from around the world straight into our communities. Where were these NGOs when 22-year-old Laken Riley was violently murdered by an illegal? Where were these NGOs when 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare was brutally raped and murdered by one of these illegals? And where were these NGOs when 20-year-old Kayla Hamilton was raped and strangled to death by an illegal? Where were these NGOs over the weekend when the illegal alien launched Molotov cocktails into a crowd in Boulder, Colorado, intentionally injuring a dozen Americans in an anti-Semitic attack? I'll tell you. They were continuing to receive taxpayer dollars to import more of these illegal alien monsters to commit more heinous crimes against our people. Many Americans are familiar with the more egregious offenders. These include Catholic Charities, which raked in over $2 billion during Biden's 4 years, and the Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, which received over $221 million in government grants in fiscal year 2023 alone. But many American taxpayers are still unwittingly funding this sort of illegal activity through the United Nations, which is the conduit for much of the funding NGOs use to resettle in our country. Americans are likely unaware that their tax dollars are funding UN efforts such as the cash and voucher program involving 624,000 illegal aliens crossing the border just last year. This $372 million program provides prepaid debit cards and cash in envelopes to illegal aliens to facilitate their movement to and through the U.S. border. The American taxpayer is funding groups that start the migration, the groups that show people how to cross the border by evading U.S. immigration laws, these groups that have been bused and flown illegal aliens, many of them dangerous, into America. Whether exploiting taxpayers to push illegal immigration or fake environmental justice, the left's NGO scheme seeks to destroy our country and fundamentally alter the American way of life. This ongoing waste and abuse of taxpayer resources must end. The Trump administration is turning the tide, and today's hearing is intended to expedite the effort to drain these slush funds dry. If we don't, Democrats can't wait to return to power and continue funding their NGO friends through slush funds and stop deportations. Keep these illegal alien criminals in our country, and of course, fund the Green New Deal scam again. And with that, I yield to the ranking member Stansbury for her opening statement.
Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome indeed to the Doge Subcommittee. It's always an interesting journey here. Madam Chairwoman, before we get started, I want to take a moment to observe that this very subcommittee was created in January to act as the congressional tip of the spear for Doge and Elon Musk's efforts inside the federal government, which our GOP colleagues were falling all over themselves to get in on the action. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, Madam Chairwoman, but one of your own GOP members who couldn't get on the committee actually contacted me to see if I could help because they were so desperate to participate in this activity. But here we are. I feel like we should play a breakup song in the midst of the breakup of the GOP with Elon Musk and Doge, and yet still the zombie lurches on. And you know, I think it's interesting that people are barely saying his name in these halls, and this subcommittee barely has any credibility at this point. And Elon Musk still hasn't appeared under oath in front of this committee or anybody here in Congress. And in fact, Donald Trump himself apparently asked his own aides this week if Doge was, and I quote the president, bullshit. Donald Trump asked if Doge was bullshit. Meanwhile, our friend, Mr. Musk, is going crazy on Twitter. We just checked. He's still going at it. And he literally has been tweet storming the GOP for the last 24 hours. And he says, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. And you know what I find interesting about his tweet is that he says, I'm sorry, I just can't stand it anymore. And I think, you know, the American people have been there for the last 3.5 months as they've dismantled the federal government, as Musk and Trump and his friends here.
You have to ask yourself as you're listening to this diatribe, Elon Musk had to know that they were going to be using these tweets, these X posts against him. Against President Trump. So they quickly took the bait. They could not take the bait. It's something they could wave in front of everybody's face and say, yeah, even Elon says you people are stupid. You have to realize right now, you are seeing a movie play out in epic proportions. Epic.
And the deficit spending in it. There was a misrepresentation of a witness in this hearing last time. There was lies about the budget, reconciliation, and yes, the Doge package, which was transmitted to Congress yesterday. And I don't think I even need to comment on the wild journey of baseless conspiracy theories that we just heard. So, it's very clear that Doge has made America less safe, less secure, undermined our global and national security, compromised our data privacy, impacted our ability to serve our vulnerable communities, and left the government in total chaos. And yet, many of these Doge brothers have implanted themselves inside of federal agencies and are now answering directly to the West Wing and to the Director of Office of Management and Budget, Mr. Russell Vought, who, by the way, is testifying just across this campus on his bill for the FY26 budget, which would eviscerate these programs. So I want to say, first, they came for our federal agencies. Then they came for our judges and law firms and the rule of law. Then they came for the free press and your freedom of speech. Then they came for higher education and our children. Then they came for congressional offices. And now, here they are, coming for civil society and nonprofit organizations. What are nonprofit organizations? Food banks, legal aid clinics, homeless shelters, organizations that are the glue of our communities. In fact, right now, they are withholding $500 billion illegally from nonprofit organizations that provide services for our communities. Public safety, health services, housing, the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America, Boys and Girls Club, and Habitat for Humanity. Is this the dark money scare that we're hearing across the aisle? I think all of us understand what these organizations do in our communities. But let us be clear. The actions that are happening here in this committee and which the administration are trying to execute through executive actions, through letters, and yes, sending Doge employees baselessly and illegally into nonprofit organizations are illegal. They lack moral authority and they lack legal authority. The truth is simple. Neither the president nor any other executive branch official has the power to unilaterally revoke an organization's tax-exempt status or to use these authoritarian tactics to try to intimidate our nonprofit and civil society organizations. And we will dive deeper into that topic and your rights during this hearing. But if my colleagues across the aisle want to talk about dark money networks, we can look no further than this very hearing room, because if we actually want to understand the dark money funded networks that are making the government run right now, let's talk about Project 2025. The witnesses who are here today as part of the organizations that helped to craft it. Mr. Vogt, who was at the helm as the architect of that document, and the folks who are inside the federal government right now, dismantling our agencies and attacking every aspect of our democracy. We will not stand for it. And with that, Madam Chairwoman, I yield back.
Without objection, Representatives Gosar of Arizona, Moskowitz of Florida, and Presley of Massachusetts are waived on to the subcommittee for the purpose of questioning the witnesses at today's committee hearing. I'm pleased to introduce our witnesses today. Scott Walker is the president of Capital Research Center and an expert in investigating how nonprofits spend money and get involved in politics and advocacy. Mark Krikorian is the executive director of the Center of Immigration Studies and is an expert on the issues of immigration and border security. Daniel Turner is the founder and executive director of Power the Future and an expert in energy and environmental issues. Diane Yentl is the president and chief executive officer of the National Council of Nonprofits. Again, I want to thank all of you for being here to testify today. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Thank you. You may take a seat. We appreciate you being here today and look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statements and they will appear in full in the hearing record. Please limit your oral statement to 5 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 5 minutes has expired, and we would ask that you please wrap it up quickly. I now recognize Mr. Walter for his opening statement.
Thank you. Chairwoman Green, Ranking Member Stansbury, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the honor of testifying. I'm president of the Capital Research Center, where we study nonprofits every day. Americans are proud of our nonprofit sector, which has long led the world because they love real charities that actually help people here and abroad. They don't think of the nonprofit sector as the plaything of billionaires and politicians. Yet, all too often, that is the reality of our non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. Far too many NGOs are really BGOs, basically government organizations, for two reasons. First, they get most of their money from government, not citizens. Second, they serve the big government political agenda that fights to centralize power in Washington for the benefit of the left's preferred political party. From countless egregious examples, consider the Solidarity Center. This nonprofit child of the country's largest union federation, the AFL-CIO, is chaired by the AFL-CIO's president. Solidarity Center doesn't just boost unions, it also champions DEI and climate justice. It's suing the current administration because Doge recommended its federal gravy train end. It received over $86 million from the federal government since 2008. 61 of that 86 million was given under President Biden, doubtless encouraged by the 3 Solidarity employees who went into the Labor Department. Solidarity receives 99% of its revenue from American taxpayers. It serves the AFL-CIO, which gave 86% of its 2024 political donations to Democrats. Today's Democratic witness, Diane Yentl, is yet another powerful example of nonprofits serving big government. One of her typical tweets attacked Doge and defended the Vera Institute of Justice, which in 2023 received 79% of its revenues from government. It's a hard-left, Soros-backed group whose priorities oppose the views of Americans' Democratic majority by advocating soft-on-crime policies and defending illegal aliens. Its biggest vendor in its last IRS filing was Blue State Digital, which began life as Barack Obama's digital campaign team and now serves the entire left. Ms. Yentl was hired by Obama at HUD, and President Biden considered her for a cabinet post. Her previous job was leading the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, an NGO that advocates for ever more federal spending by HUD and uses identity politics to justify its agenda. In her current job, leading the National Council of Nonprofits, Ms. Yentl quickly sued the Trump administration over budget cuts. What lawyers did she turn to? The Democracy Forward Foundation, whose board...
Okay, so I've got Rebecca Coffler in our so-called green room here. I'm actually going to pause that hearing. You won't miss a single second of it. I've got it paused on the other computer, and we're going to take this interview, given what's going on with Ukraine and Russia and the war that we're about to be in. Yes, I believe we are in this war. Let me go ahead and play a quick video from Miss Coffler here. She was on Steve Bannon's show the other day. Listen to this.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. We are no longer in a proxy war with Russia. The United States is now officially in a direct kinetic war with Moscow because of how Russia looks at things. Ukraine has no indigenous capability to execute this tactically brilliant operation. It doesn't have satellites. It cannot geolocate these strategic nuclear bombers, right? Those bombers are reserved to wage nuclear war, and Ukraine just attacked them. And that came right after Ukraine tried to assassinate President Putin. Russian President Putin's helicopter, when he was visiting Ukraine, came under a drone attack. And so right now, because the nuclear doctrine of the Russian Federation that Putin actually updated late last year, because he has noticed that we are consistently climbing this escalation ladder, it has a clause of a joint attack. And so they are looking at this attack that it is enabled by the United States. And that is the danger. We are climbing very steadily the escalation ladder, and we're probably the actual full ladder is classified, so I can't talk about it. But it's my official intelligence assessment that we have climbed up more than 50% at this point. And the danger is here. At first, it goes pretty gradually, but then after you cross a certain threshold, it goes very, very fast into cyber warfare, space warfare, and then all the way into the nuclear. And every single war game that we conducted back in the intelligence community, and we conducted dozens of them, and I led some of the red teams, it ended up in a nuclear war. And guess what? Blue lost and red won. Why? Because Putin has a playbook. He has been planning for it. It's all, very well thought through. And we don't have the response, because instead of actually targeting Russia and neutralizing the threat, the deep state of the U.S. intelligence community was chasing the non-existent Russia-Trump collusion. So they weren't doing their job. They were trying to unseat President Trump. And that's what happened. And that's why we are almost in the World War III right now. Why is that? Because once it starts, China, North Korea, Iran, whom are they going to side? They're going to side with Russia. And that is why it's not just Russian nuclear arsenal. It's China's. You're adding all the capability that's going to be all combined and used against the United States.
What did Putin mean when he said, by the way, the symbolism of the Turkish fiasco today, where it basically lasted 30 minutes? What does that tell us?
Well, that tells us that President Trump's peace plan, unfortunately, has been sabotaged. It has been sabotaged by Zelensky, whom we actually have given billions of dollars, right? And very, very strategic military hardware, having depleted our own arsenal. And it has been sabotaged by the deep state, because it appears as though President Trump didn't even know about Ukrainian assassination attempt on Putin. And he didn't even know about this reckless strike on Russian nuclear bombers that Ukraine just executed. And so, therefore, there's nothing to talk. What is there to talk about, right? So Putin is almost certainly right now thinking through what it is that he is going to do, because his decision calculus is right now based on what I just said, that he needs to follow the Russian doctrine and the joint attack clause. I'll tell you exactly what the joint attack clause says. It says any aggression against Russia or its allies by a non-nuclear state, i.e. Ukraine, with the participation or support of a nuclear power, which is us, will be seen as the joint attack on Russia. And so they are likely right now developing targeting packages and deciding what is it that they're going to attack. I absolutely do not rule out the possibility of the Russians actually attacking at this point a NATO country. They wouldn't have done it if Ukrainians didn't do that, right? But right now, the doctrine justifies Putin's action.
All right, so we have a lot to talk about. Like I said, we're going to get back to the hearing, but I want to talk to Miss Rebecca Coffler, who you just saw on Steve Bannon's show. Rebecca is a Russian-born U.S. intelligence expert who served as a Russian doctrine and strategy specialist in the Defense Intelligence Agency, working with the DIA and the CIA's National Clandestine Service. She has led red teams during war games and advised senior Pentagon officials. She has also delivered classified briefings to top U.S. military commanders, NATO ministers, the directors of the CIA and DIA, the White House National Security Council, and senior congressional staff. In her post-public service career, Rebecca is a writer and a national security commentator whose work has been published on Fox, The Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, The Hill, The New York Post, Real Clear Politics, Real Clear Defense, The Daily Caller, and The Washington Times. She has also appeared on Fox News, Fox Business, Fox Nation, and the Sean Hannity National Syndicated Radio Show. She was born and raised in the Soviet Union. Rebecca came to America as a young woman. After 9/11, she joined the DIA, devoting her career to protecting her new country. Now she reveals in her chilling detail, with great detail, her new book, Putin's Playbook, to weaken and subdue the United States, preparing for the war that he believes is inevitable. Rebecca, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Everything going well?
Yes, I can hear you great. Thank you.
Okay. This is crazy. So before I start getting into too many questions, I listened to what you said on Steve's show. And you mentioned, for people who don't know, who are not in the military, what exactly is a kinetic war?
Oh, it just means things go boom. It's missile strikes, it's drone strikes, it's basically explosions when things blow up. And that is, no longer like cyber. You can do a lot of things with cyber to disable things, but typically with cyber, and with space warfare, there's typically, not always, but typically no human casualties. It's only if you go all the way into like destructive cyber attacks then you can have human casualties, but not at the low grade. But with missile strikes, there's always a human destruction.
So if we're already in that war, the kinetic war, are you looking at things, and have you been talking or hearing from people that we are going to be in the next scaling up of actual war over there?
So here's what's happening right now, and not just right now, but this is what has led up to all this. We have right now, today, and we've had for several years, multiple CIA bases on the territory of Ukraine, where CIA intelligence officers and paramilitary personnel are enabling Ukrainians to strike the Russian territory by sharing intelligence. In addition, we have, and just to clarify again for people who don't understand what's intelligence, what is intelligence information, right? We have, the United States has tremendous intelligence capabilities. It's like a vacuum cleaner. It sucks up a lot of information on foreign military capabilities and doctrines, including on Russia's, through our satellites, through our communication intercepts, through human spies, imagery, you name it. There's something called MASN, foreign instrumentation. Basically, it's when a missile strikes, right? There's a plume. We evaluate that all of these senses that are exuding. You know, you can compare it like as a human, for example, we have like by blood, you can figure out a lot what's going on with the person, with the health of a person. Well, the same with like analyzing missiles instrumentation and how it smells, feels, looks. You can figure out what type of missile it is. All of that information is right now fed to Ukrainian forces to enable them to strike Russia. In addition to those CIA military bases, there's something called NATO Combat Training Center in Yavoriv. Yavoriv is on Ukrainian territory about 6 miles from Poland, where U.S. and NATO military officers, not just intelligence officers, but military officers, are training Ukrainians how to kill Russians. We have Army Reserve, National Guard reserves from New York, from Tennessee, from Florida, on rotational basis there. So it is not by chance that they are there. And look at how we progressed from the beginning of this war in the 3 years to today. It originated with, and even before that war, President Obama started giving to Ukrainians blankets, MREs, night vision goggles. We then progressed to lethal aid. And even though we told the Russians, no, we're never going to, Biden did, we're never going to give them long-range weapons, well, they now have long-range weapons, long-range missiles, ATACMS from us. And not only that, we have lifted all restrictions from Ukraine on striking deep into Russia. And this is what Ukrainians just did. They struck Russian nuclear triad. Okay, it doesn't get any more strategic than that. So that is where we are.
I got a question for you, because I understand everything you said. The one thing I don't understand, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering it. So we had a new election. President Trump got in office. Why in the hell are we still funding and providing this country with weaponry?
President Trump is one person. President Trump, yes, he wants peace. He promised to end this war, and he has a couple of reliable people, loyal people on his staff, right? But deep state is really deep. I mean, everybody below the political appointees, and even some of the appointees are not exactly on board with President Trump. That's why, for example, he booted out national security Michael Walls. It's not just about this signal fiasco, right? The signal gate. Michael Walls was a big, big on destroy Russia camp. So the deep state is right now undermining President Trump. Look, they haven't even shared critical intelligence with him on the fact that Ukrainians tried to assassinate Putin. Putin is the head of state. Imagine if President Trump was flying over Ukraine, and the Russians tried to strike it. Right? What would we do with the Russians? Nobody, exactly. Or if let's say the Russians enables Cubans to strike our nuclear strategic bombers in our airfields, what would we do? We would demolish, Russian warfighting capability, and nobody would give a peep even. Nobody would say, oh, why did you do that? We would feel justified. So, again, from the Russian perspective, we are at war right now. We didn't declare that war, but they know Washington's playbook. We didn't declare wars on Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Kosovo. We went in, right? And so Putin today, this is exactly why he exited the peace talks. Here's what Putin said, and I'm giving you a direct quote because I read Russian, obviously, unlike a lot of these so-called experts, right? They get all the information from American news about Russia. Imagine if Russia, all they read is Russian media and made assessment on how things are in the United States. Right. And yet this is most of these commentators, this is what they do. They read something in the US media and say, oh, the Russians are going to do this. Putin thinks this. I'm like, really? Where did you get that idea from? So here's what Putin said directly, English translation from Russian to you. Putin said, the Kiev regime is reborn into terrorists, and its sponsors become accomplices. There's nothing to talk about with such people. They do not need peace. What do they mean by Kiev regime? Is basically Ukrainian government and everybody's around Zelensky and Zelensky himself. Whom do they mean by sponsors? Us. The United States, they don't differentiate. Putin can't for the life of him believe that President Trump was not aware. He doesn't understand. Putin does not understand how deep the deep state is.
Let's stop you. Let me stop you there for 1 second.
Okay, go ahead.
Not only does Putin not believe or understand, I don't understand. I'm sure his people watching don't understand. The head of this country, the man who controls what happens, when happens, how it happens. Are you saying that he couldn't tomorrow tell Pete Hegseth, go get these people out of Ukraine and shut it down? He doesn't have that power?
He has that power. He can say that, but it doesn't mean it's going to get done because, again, people who, he can't himself go and get those bases out. I mean, it took years to establish those bases. They're real people. And people who are below Pete Hegseth, below Tulsi Gabbard, right? Those people, their rank is called SES, Senior Executive Service person. That's a very senior level. And just below that, a GS 15 level. Those people are all government. They're like part of the permanent government. They're not elected. Nobody elected them, but they've been there for decades. And they're actually the ones who would be following orders, and they simply just don't follow orders. And I saw it, Barry, firsthand. I was a pretty senior level, but GS 14 just below. And even though, I briefed all of these various people, Obama's National Security Council staff, I briefed at the White House, myself, I briefed NATO, and you articulated whom exactly I briefed, right? But then those people above you, they don't they say, yeah, we hear what you're saying, but we just don't believe that Russia is going to go to war over the fact that we're trying to get NATO into Ukraine, and therefore we're going to continue pushing NATO into Ukraine. And one thing about my book to understand, it's called Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. But the key thing is they would only execute that plan if we try to do regime change on Putin, or if we really try to get Ukraine into NATO, which is part of their strategic security perimeter. Just like we have the Monroe Doctrine, right? We wouldn't allow China or Russia deploy military hardware, warfighting capabilities as close as Mexico, Canada, right? We would just like remove that immediately because it's a threat, and the same with the Russians. So people need to understand that the Russians are not going to invade the U.S. They're not going to like out of the blue strike the United States out of the blue, right? But if they perceive that the U.S. or Ukraine, enabled by the U.S., is posing a threat to Russia, which it is because they just struck nuclear bombers, okay? Like I said, strategic nuclear triad is deep in Russia as 3,000 miles. That's Siberia we're talking about, okay? Wow. That's half of the country. Imagine if in the heartland of America, someone struck our nuclear bombers that is the central component of the entire deterrence. And they just struck that. Those people must be suicidal.
Did you see what President Trump posted today? Have you seen it yet?
Of course I did. If you mean, and I get it obviously through my sources, if you mean by the phone call, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Right. So here's the deal. If you want to know, do you want me to talk about the phone call? Or?
Please.
Okay. So it was a good kind of professional phone call. It lasted 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is a good sign. And I was actually pleased that Trump called Putin, because I was calling for it as an intelligence officer, because again, like Putin thought Trump was in on it. Okay, so Trump needed to tell him, as embarrassing as it is to admit that you're not in control of your own spy agencies, it had to happen, because otherwise Putin would have assumed that, Trump was in on it.
Right.
So it lasted 1 hour, 15 minutes, but it wasn't like Putin did not say he's going to end this war. So it wasn't the kind of call that they just, shook hands and said, okay, we're all buddies again. None of that. They're very professional. They have a good professional relationship. They, respect each other. But Putin is not going to end the war as a personal favor to Trump.
No.
Right? He has to eliminate the threat. And the threat right now is Ukraine, which has the capability to conduct strategic attacks from inside Russia. We're talking inside Russia. That was a clandestine covert operation where those drones popped up out of the truck. They were smuggled there, okay? So therefore, then President Trump broached the topic of Putin helping with Iran, the nuclear threat with Iran. Putin kind of was non-committal.
Wait. I got to stop you.
Go ahead.
I got to stop
yes,
you because
sir.
you missed a very important sentence in what he said.
Go ahead.
The thing that struck me was, he's not going to end the war, blah, 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 and he's going to strike back. He put that in there.
Yes.
So what's next? What is the counterpunch at this point, do you think, is going to look like?
Right. So here's my official intelligence analysis. So at this point, Putin is not going to do necessarily a nuclear strike, right? We are on the escalation ladder. We're climbing there. The end of it, at the end, is nuclear strike, right? But he has multiple options. So he can do a kinetic and non-kinetic strike in parallel, okay, synchronically rather, on likely he's going to do it at this point on Ukrainian, that Yavoriv base, right? Ukraine that I just talked about, where we have our people training Ukrainians how to kill the Russians.
Right.
Now, Ukraine technically is not part of NATO, right? So it doesn't trigger collective defense. So if Putin were to strike a NATO country like Berlin, Germany, France, Poland, collective defense would apply, which means we are automatically at war with Russia. We would be required, the United States, to deploy U.S. troops on the battlefield into Ukraine, which President Trump specifically rolled out during his campaign. He said, no more foreign wars, no more, American men and women dying. And who is usually dying? Who goes into the military? It's not all the elites, daughters and sons and wives, and it's all the blue states. It's all the common folk, the blue-collar folk. So President Trump said, no, you want to go to war, send your, people. So that's why, even though Putin is justified, he's totally justified according to the Russian doctrine. And that's on the agenda. They are putting target packages together for the future, right? To strike Poland, to strike Germany, to strike even potentially the United States. It's not going to be executed, but Putin pre-plans everything, right? He wants the war plans on the shelf. So if we go there, right, the Russian doctrine is to out-escalate the adversary. He can just pull the targeting package off the shelf and say go. So, but at this point, likely this Yavoriv base is on the target list because he doesn't want to start the war with NATO, but he wants to clearly indicate, knock it off. So, likely if he does that, some Ukrainian, American, NATO forces located there are going to be killed, okay? But at the same time, President Trump, when it comes to Syria, President Trump did authorize a strike during his first term that killed 300 Russian paramilitary forces, Wagner Group. And Putin just ate it. Putin did not overreact. Okay? So we have a precedent when the Putin and Trump, they have respect. They understand war is war. Putin is not going to tell Trump who and what and where he's going to strike, because there's going to be a massive strike. He also has other capability that is not nuclear, but it produces the same type of damage as nuclear, but without nuclear mushroom. Oof. What am I talking about? I'm talking about hypersonic missiles, and they have several in their arsenal. They have Oreshnik, they have Kinjal, they have I'm blanking out now. It's all in my book, by the way. My book describes at the unclassified level Putin's entire warfighting strategy, his thinking, and all of those weapons are there. He has, and those weapons like Oreshnik, why are they unique? Because they're dual capable. They can be outfitted with a nuclear warhead, and they can be outfitted with a conventional warhead. And guess what? Our ballistic missile defense cannot intercept that. Why can't we intercept that? We can't intercept that because they fly at hypersonic speeds, 11 times faster than the speed of light. And the second reason we can't intercept it.
You meant sound, right? Not light.
I'm sorry, sound. Yeah. Sound. And the second reason we can't intercept it, in order to intercept anything, any kind of asset like a missile, you have to first detect it, and then you have to characterize it. What is it exactly? How you're gonna detection is problematic to begin with when it flies at such a speed, because it also maneuvers in flight, right? So it's very hard. And then intercepting it and characterizing it, because the missile, like I said, all the instrumentation, all the sensors, they emit signals that are nuclear signals, because Oreshnik is based on RS-26, which is an ICBM. It has all of the guts of that missile, of an ICBM, all the electronics, all the data acquisition sensors. They are from that missile, and so it's very easy for us to make a mistake of what kind of missile it is. Right? It smells, walks, and talks like an ICBM, and that's by design. Why did the Russians do that? They want to create, if your listeners heard of Karl von Clausewitz, the preeminent Prussian military strategist, he talked about the fog of war, right? In the fog of war, decision-making is very complicated. And all of those people like Lindsey Graham who try and Mike Pompeo who are trying to push us into that, they think it's going to be a piece of cake to defeat Russia. Well, they're mistaken, because it's going to be so difficult to make a decision. And we can start a nuclear war by mistake. What if we think whoever is in the Pentagon, especially if somebody in the deep state, right, gives bad advice to Pete Hegseth and says, oh, this is a nuclear missile, right? Then we press the nuclear button. I'm giving you worst case scenario. I think President Trump is much more judicious about that. But here's the kicker. President Trump is going to have, if it's a nuke, he has 4 to 8 minutes reaction time. And that includes, from the time that we detect that missile, that includes the military officer who is on duty to brief his senior commander, to wake up, whoever's going to wake up Trump, and then Trump has, and all of that is 48 minutes. Okay.
You know what you're saying is terrifying, that we're even discussing this. That the fact that
exactly
it's beyond comprehension that these guys are flying over to Ukraine like it's no big deal, and let's talk about blowing this up or blowing that up, not knowing what the repercussions are. Everything short of a nuclear strike. How does it affect the United States? Because what you mentioned, I can't even pronounce the base you're talking about. But there's no way President Trump is just going to sacrifice a couple of hundred guys to say, hey, just stay there and just, kiss your butt goodbye. Is he going to withdraw his people? There's no way I could see him just letting that happen.
I have no information on that. And I said the target that I picked, it's my intelligence analysis that he's got, because I looked at the target list, what could he do, right? He could also do, in addition to that, Yavoriv is the military industrial complex. That one's, it's called, it's YAVORIV. That's what it's called, right? There's, he could also strike Zelensky's residence and the parliament, right? Which, he's justified. I don't know what President Trump is going to do, but we are there at that point. Like you said, these people, Mike Pompeo and Lindsey Graham, they just weren't in Kiev. And today Pompeo, he's a former CIA director. So I am 100% certain, having served in the U.S. intelligence community, that whomever was not telling Trump, President Trump, whomever's not briefing them, is probably working indirectly for Pompeo, because Pompeo comes from the, former CIA director. So it is very, very serious. I don't understand why these people are doing what they are doing. Either it's incompetence or it's deliberately trying to get Putin to overreact, and then they have the justification to strike Russia. This is a mystery to me, because any rational person, it's not just me saying it, you listen to any kind of serious former intelligence or military officer, we all say the same thing, except like the generals who have gotten us into like Iraq under the false pretext, or those kinds of people who keep saying like, oh, let's give more weaponry to Ukraine, let's give them more money, Ukraine can win. That's because they're benefiting from, they're making money on dead Ukrainians. But anybody who is unbiased, independent, like myself, we're saying the same thing. You guys are playing with fire. And when President Trump called Putin that he's crazy and bad things will happen to Russia, that he's the only one who is preventing bad things. Obviously, he didn't know. It's absurd what these people are doing, and somebody really needs to stop them. President Trump needs to give direction to Pam Bondi and to Kash Patel to wipe out all GS-15s and all SESs who served under Clapper, who's a former DNI, who was part of Clapper, Brennan, and James Comey. This is the DNI, CIA, FBI. They were the ones who concocted the Russia-Trump collusion, right? Everybody knows this at this point. They want to undermine Trump. They want to undermine his peace plan. All of those people just below that level, they need to go.
At this point, we've been talking about going full on Insurrection Act, Andrew Jackson. The more I hear, the more I feel we don't have a choice. You've got to get these roaches, these rats out of these different holes and just start over. And we only have a certain amount of time. Speaking of time, before I finish that thought, what's the strike time in terms of expecting Putin's response?
My assessment is that something is going to happen by this weekend. Something is going to happen by this weekend. I would be expecting that. So June 14th is the Army Day, right? And it's President Trump's birthday. The Russians are big on symbolism. I would expect something right before or like right around. So I would say the window is June 13th through 15th. That would be the window. And again, I don't want Americans to freak out that Russia is going to strike the United States. It will not, especially like not kinetically, not nuclear. At this point, we're not there on the escalation ladder. We're climbing it steadily and gradually, but we're not quite there.
Rebecca, that's even worse. It's like you said, not yet. And I'm like, wait, no. I was hoping you'd say, no, that's out of the question. He won't do it. You said not yet.
No, I am like a dot. Like I am not gonna sit and tell you that everything is great because everything is not great. Like if the doctor is required to tell the patient, look, you have cancer and you have like these options, right? If you don't do these options, it can kill you. So President Trump definitely has options to stop this. There are ways.
So stop you there because that's some good news. What are those options?
Well, the options are very simple. Pull, first and foremost, stop all military assistance to Ukraine. Stop all intelligence sharing. Without our intelligence, Ukraine has no ability to strike Russian targets. There's no kill chain. They can't execute what we call the kill chain, right? If there's no data, there's no targeting, there's no precision strike. They can do they can use some people were, I want to tell you this, some people were challenging my analysis and said, oh, you don't really need US satellites to try to strike Russian nuclear bombers. You can use Google Map. And I'm like, really? Do you know what Google Maps capability is? It doesn't have real-time imagery feed. If you're relying on Google Map to strike Russian strategic, we're in deeper trouble than we are, right? There's no fidelity in the data. You can strike something that is not anymore there, or you can strike something that's already preloaded with nuclear weapons for an exercise, and then all of a sudden you're in nuclear war, right? If Zelensky's doing that, then we definitely need, immediately remove that guy. So anyway, but going back, what needs to be done, stop immediately right now, today, military assistance and intelligence sharing, do an investigation who did not brief President Trump on the assassination attack and on the spider web. The spider web operation was being prepared for 18 months, okay? Yeah. Clearly, Joe Biden or whoever was using his auto pen, that person or people approved that operation. Ukrainians couldn't have planned. Again, they don't have the capability to do that. So whoever is approved and whoever did not tell Trump. So those are the three things. If we did that, Putin would immediately say, okay, maybe, I mean, that would not end the war in Ukraine, but it would make Putin not target, not retaliate, at least like against us. And I ruled out against us a kinetic attack and nuclear attack. But what I haven't ruled out is cyber attacks. They're not going to be destructive cyber attacks, but they're going to be disruptive cyber attacks. So we may or may not necessarily feel those, but that is on the table, depending on how much convincing President Trump was able to do, like with Trump and this sort of thing.
Rebecca, it is June 4th. We're talking 10 days. So
10 days.
I'd love for Ashley to get a hold of you and come back on within this, right about the time. If we see something, we got to get you on right away and tell us what the heck is going on. Thank you so much for so much information. I know people are sitting here going, "Oh no, it's here." I never thought.
I know, and who got us into here? Everyone needs to remember who got us into here. It's Obama. Yeah. It's all the way beginning with former President Bush. He's the one who started pushing Ukraine into NATO. And at that point, many advisors said that's a red line. And Putin said, red line, red line, red line. It's Obama, it's Bush, it's Biden, it's Harris. Putin did not attack during President Trump's first term. Why? Because President Trump was not pushing Ukraine into NATO, right? So anyway, if I may, I'd like to mention that I do daily intelligence briefs. Okay. I post them on my X account at Rebecca0132. If people want to follow me, you'll get information, and then I'll come back on your show and I'll give you the full intelligence brief as I've done today.
Well, I thank you. You're going to be busy. You're going to be real busy. God bless you,
okay.
and stay safe. And I hope you're not giving out anything that these people are going to have a problem with you talking to people. Because
believe me, I'm very careful about that. But they wanted to kill. The deep state wanted to sabotage my book, and they redacted it. They look at this. The chapter on cyber is look at what they did. Wow. Right on cyber. They said, classified information. It's those people didn't want the truth out because they wanted to prepare all of these. They wanted to prepare this war, and it's really. I wanted to get one more to you just to demonstrate how they just basically. And in my book, I also disclosed the whole Russia collusion because the book came out in 21. Right at that point, I already exposed how Brennan Clapper, James Comey, they concocted the whole Russia-Trump collusion to prevent President Trump and then to unseat him. And then all these impeachments were coming in. Remember? Yeah. These people are ruthless. And when I was exposing all that, they blacked out all of this information. So I'm very careful. I don't disclose intelligence information, but I do disclose when they weaponize intelligence against a sitting U.S. president. I mean, for goodness sake, they tried to kill him, right? Yeah. I mean, does anybody for a second believe that these people were just random killers? I mean, the guy who tried to assassinate, he was in Ukraine, for goodness sake. Yeah. I mean, who are they kidding? And even to this day, we don't have a full accounting of what happened to these assassinations. So they'd better Pam Bondi and Kash Patel better give us. I hate
that those are the names that you say that have to act on this, because it's already been bad enough where people are like, what in the hell are you doing? And now here come those same people again. You're like, you guys got to do something. And what's it going to take to see American bodies blown up overseas or even over here? Good gosh. Enough.
Enough already.
Rebecca, thank you very, very much for that enlightening discussion, because I'm sure a lot of people right now are going, okay, this doesn't look good. So please do come back on. Thank you, everybody. Go ahead and follow Rebecca. Rebecca, thank you very much.
Thank you all, Fanfare family. I got a lot of sign-ups last time. God bless everybody. Let's stay safe, and let's pray for President Trump and for the United States of America.
Right. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. Get right. Make sure you are prepared. Who knows what kind of strikes will happen? Something she mentioned, it was very important. She said it wouldn't be destructive, but it could be disruptive. And you think of the things that could be disruptive: power, communications, banking. Those things, even if they're not destroyed, if they're disrupted, can cause plenty of havoc here. And so now, as you heard her speak, be on guard. I'm not telling you, and as well she wouldn't tell you to what extent something could happen, but there are rules of escalation, and it seems that though at this point we are, I don't know what stage of DEFCON, but we got like 10 days for June 14th, and oh my God, this is wild. And one of those things like you can do to begin hedging is look at some gold and silver, because don't count on all your cash being available. I'm telling you right now, if you're sitting around and you're actually holding gold and silver, and even those of you who say you can't afford gold and silver, I'm going to tell you, you might not be able not to afford it. If you've got some money in your 401k, or if you got some money stuffed under the bed, get some gold and get some silver, just in case. There's a reason why Ron DeSantis decided here in not South Florida, but the entire state, is to make gold and silver legal tender. Just watch what other people are doing, and you can get a good indication of where things are going. All right, we'll be right back, and we'll continue with the Doge hearing. We're in a very volatile time right now. There's plenty of financial uncertainty. Now is not the time to be speculative. And I'm also speaking from a personal perspective. I'm buying income-producing real estate, and I'm buying gold and silver. A lot of people don't know the difference between the economy and the stock market. And too many people listen to the news and social media. That'll get you in trouble. Let's face it. It's obvious that a lot of people have an agenda they're not telling you about. Right now, your best bet is stability. And that means you might need to build a hedge against global volatility. May I recommend gold and silver to you? Real gold and real silver. Not paper, not certificates. Actual gold and silver. What gold and silver can give you is absolute peace of mind. A stock is only as good as the company behind it. It's merely a piece of paper. One of the things I can tell you is that many people are finding out the hard way that some of their investments were built on quicksand. Gold will never be worth zero. Silver will never be worth zero. If you want to calm some of your fears, give my friends at Lear Capital a call today at 800-601-5430 or go to learberry.com. Just so you know, Lear Capital has over 27 years of experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, and over $5 billion in trusted transactions. And Lear is the only gold company with a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee. You don't pay unless you're 100% satisfied. So go to learberry.com. If you want peace of mind, give my friends at Lear Capital a call at 800-601-5430. Or look down here below and go to learberry.com. And don't forget to ask about getting up to $15,000 in free gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. Don't wait. Do it now. Nobody knows what tomorrow holds. Be safe. I just want to say thank you to the Fanfare community. And if you're new here, I'd like to take a moment and welcome you. If you watch my videos, you've probably realized at this point that this isn't your usual podcast. The difference is that every single day I try to make this show an open conversation amongst friends. You see, I believe that speaking to friends, here and in your own circle offline, is the best way to push back against all the lies being told by the Democrats and the media. I encourage people in this community to welcome each other, and in doing so become a source of support for those seeking to unplug from the matrix. If you'd like to communicate on a deeper level, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, but if you'd really like to surround yourself with like-minded patriots, join our free and private X group by going to fanfareshop.org/group. When you join this free group, a few things will happen. One, if you haven't used X before, you can use X without venturing into the sewer that it sometimes can be. Two, you can share content with friends that you meet here. 3, you will get notified every time I go live, so you can't count on YouTube notifications. And 4, and this might be most important, you get content that I can't share on YouTube or Rumble. So please take a moment and join our free and private X group. Just go to fanfareshop.org/group. Remember, it's members only. There are 16,000 plus people in that group right now, getting close to 17,000. To join our free and private members only X group, just go to fanfareshop.org/group. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Well, that was a little disconcerting to say the least. Wow. I've never been in the military. As I mentioned here many times, my brother went to West Point. He is now a big wig up in, I don't know, colonel or something in the military. I just want to post something or a couple things that General Michael Flynn, never want to make sure you forget someone's rank when they get to that point, that he posted. And this thing he posted recently says he's responding to something that Vladimir Putin posted. Russian President Vladimir Putin claims Ukraine is no longer just an illegitimate regime, but is now acting as a full-fledged terrorist organization. He accuses Ukrainian forces of pulling back on some fronts while escalating with what he calls terror attacks, all while hypocritically pushing for a ceasefire. The last sentence says it all. There is nothing to negotiate with those who choose terrorism. And General Flynn responded, I pray all the right people are paying attention. Donald Trump's recent and strong statement makes it clear he is. He needs to ensure those around him are feeding him the right information. The decision-making space is narrowing. So when you hear combat veterans of that stature say your options are beginning to narrow quickly, those of us who are civilians, who've never been in war, and we look to these people, we look to our leaders to say, get us out of this. There's no way I still can't pronounce the name of the base or whatever center she was referring to, but I don't want to see not one American soldier be killed. Never mind 300, 400, 500 that I didn't even know were there. All because this deep state apparatus wants to find some way to continue keeping this war going so they can line their pockets with your money. Make no mistake about it, that's what it's about. It's about money, to the point where money so much is driving these people that they want to just start World War III, basically. Then, after this, we're going to read every word of this. I won't go back to the hearing right now, but maybe I won't read every word because, oh my gosh, did General Flynn jump into something here? It must have taken him forever to write this. This was, look at this thing. This was 30 minutes ago. And it starts off with a little paragraph 1. While most of America remains blissfully uninformed by our establishment press, which is true. The world's two greatest superpowers are being manipulated by dark forces inside and outside of our governments into a major military confrontation that no country wants and no sane person would ever want. I have no role in the Trump administration, but over a long career in the active uniformed military, specifically military intelligence, I have made it a point to cultivate many sources of information around the world. From what I can piece together, I want to share my deep concern about who is behind this march to war and my recommendations for how our nation and the West can avoid a major military confrontation with Russia. Now, before I continue, you've got somebody like General Michael Flynn who's ringing the bell. And he's ringing the bell right now and saying, this is it. We're not playing any games anymore. Putin is not, you don't have to wonder if Putin's going to respond. The only thing you need to wonder, I guess, about is when and how big. But a response is coming. It's imminent. We just heard Rebecca talk about it, and now General Flynn's like, shit's on now. Let's continue. Let me know if I'm boring you with this. I believe that the American deep state is staffed by those with a deep, visceral, and irrational hatred for Russia, and these persons have conspired to box in President Trump's decision-making through the Russiagate hoax. During the time the Soviet Union was expanding and infiltrating our government, I was an outspoken anti-communist, but despite the lies told by our deep state, Russia is not the Soviet Union and Putin is not Stalin. Now you have to think back. Why was it strategic in President Trump's first term to get rid of this guy? That was like the first target they went after. We got to get Flynn out of here. And then for whatever reason, President Trump went ahead and fired him, and we know now the rest of the story. We've heard them brag about how they just sent some guys over there, what they were going to do. And so now he's telling everybody, the world, watch out. President Trump's efforts to bring peace are met with resistance. The establishment press, deeply influenced and even sometimes controlled by our deep state, labeled President Trump and those who work for him Putin's puppets to goad him into taking unwarranted and aggressive steps against Russia. These voices from the establishment press reflect the views of the deep state, not the American people. I gotta stop there. I have to believe that. Even the idiots with Ukraine flags in their bios. Even those idiots. You don't want this. If you know people who like to go out there and protest and you don't want no part of what could possibly be coming. You didn't think this out. You haven't game planned it in your mind. Like, well, what happens if they start pushing buttons? You're not prepared to go live in a cave. You're not prepared to go underground. You're an idiot in mommy's basement putting a Ukraine flag in your bio. You don't probably even own a gun. What are you going to do when the poop hits the fan? Mommy can't help you. You're not going to be able to go to Starbucks and get your double grande latte with your EBT card or credit card because the machine ain't working. People haven't thought this out. They haven't played war games. Go watch the movie. Are you ready for thermonuclear war? No, I'm not ready for thermonuclear war. I'm a long way away from being ready for thermonuclear war. These people were the dollar. These voices from the establishment reflect the views of the deep state, not the American people, and not the MAGA movement. It should be completely disregarded, if not mocked. I think that's a very important statement there. Mock them. Shame them. Let everybody know, you're a flippin' idiot. If you're out there saying, yeah, we should take out Russia, you're a moron. You're an absolute moron if you think that Ukraine can take out Russia on its own. I think you guys know that. Let's continue. During almost all of the post-World War II period, and certainly since the establishment of the CIA in 1947, these unelected dark establishment forces have acted to destabilize the world, bringing death, famine, assassinations, violence, coups, riots, color revolutions, and destruction to our planet. Currently, these forces are working to provoke Russia into a major, and wait for it, perhaps a final military conflict with the West. Oh, what did he say? Yeah. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Except for these people do know what they're doing. They cannot be forgiven because they don't know what they're doing. They need to be shunned and mocked and exposed because they know exactly what they're doing. Here's another video that YouTube will probably tell me, you're going way too deep here, bro. Wake up. Wake up. Pray up. This is about to get ugly if it goes to where they're talking. The provocation has many forms. Most recently involves a surprise drone attack on the Russian Federation's strategic arsenal, said to affect 40 bombers, or about a third of Russia's strategic bomber fleet. Like Rebecca said, what would you expect us to do if some upstart little tiny pissant country decided, hey, listen, we're just going to start blowing up stuff in the United States? Think about it. Think about if Mexico decided, you know what, we're tired of the United States. Go ahead and launch some stuff over there. Take out Fort Bragg. Huh? What? What do you think our response would be? What would our response be if Canada said the same thing? You know what? We don't like Donald Trump. Push the button and take out Fort Bragg or any of these other forts. What would happen? So, as you answer that question to yourself, then you have to begin thinking 2 and 3 steps deep. Because right now, Putin is thinking 3 or 4 steps deep. He's like, I'm going to strike here. I'm going to hit them, and I'm going to hit them flipping hard. And then I have to expect that they're going to respond. And then I have to know that I'm going to respond. And where's that ladder keep going? Once you've thrown that first punch, or first 2 punches, as they have tried to do Ukraine, until somebody says, I don't want to punch anymore, and they submit, the punches keep coming. And unfortunately, we, as the United States, are giving people, adrenaline shots over there. Hey, throw this at him. Yeah, he won't know it's coming. Yeah, here's some intelligence. Oh, yeah. At some point, Putin's going to look, either you guys need to stop or we're coming for you. See, right now, Putin knows we're doing all this stuff. And we're not even allowed to talk. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen with this video. The fact that we're discussing it. He knows that we know. And everybody in the tech world and government has tried to make anybody who says stop this stuff look like loons. Let's continue. Since Russia and American strategic bombers are generally required by agreement to be visible to satellite surveillance, never before has anyone ever engaged in attack on these visible targets. If Russian bombers can be attacked with impunity, so can American bombers. By this action, the Ukrainian government has not just weakened Russia, it has jeopardized America. Thus, those in the Ukrainian government who ordered these strikes have made themselves enemies not just of Russia but of the United States. Making matters worse, this unwarranted attack was followed by Ukrainian attacks on the Kerch Strait Bridge connecting Russia and Crimea. I do not believe that the recent escalation against Russia's strategic bomber fleet was authorized or coordinated with President Trump. Rather, it is my view the deep state is now acting outside the control of the elected leadership of our nation. See, I don't know how much more you need to hear once you hear that. We have a rogue group of people who are looking at our president and going, right there, buddy, we run this. You just happen to be living in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now, but we run this. We don't care what you think. We don't care what you do. We run this. Watch this. We're going to go over to Ukraine, and we're not even going to hide our faces. We're going to just start walking in there going, hey, what's up? Yeah, what's up? How you guys doing? We don't care. You can't stop us. Unless he can. And see, in order for us to be protected, now I haven't read the rest of what General Flynn is saying here, but in order for us not to be in this position, that Band-Aid has to be pulled. We cannot continue in conventional ways when the people who wish us harm are not playing by those same conventional rules anymore. They don't care. They've got the judges. They've got somebody in the military or some people in the military. They've got some people pulling the banking and funding strings. They don't care about President Trump. They don't care about you. MAGA, I don't care. We're out here blowing up stuff. So at this point, you better be prepared. And number two, you need to shout from the rooftops to President Trump and let him know that 77, 80 million people are like, do it. Do what you need to do now. Before June 14th. Go over there, get some special forces, and get in there and extricate whoever is giving these orders. Clean out the different buildings, cut off the communications, cut off the wiring of funds. Do it all. We're in a big I never thought we'd see the country get to here, to the point where Democrats and deep staters don't care about you at all. Don't care about this country. Money. Power. This is bad. So he continues, starting here. The time is now to take aggressive action against those who abuse their authority as government employees to manipulate the elected leadership of our nation. There is no way out. MSNBC, CNN, they're all going to tell you, the rules and legal, and there's no other way. If you think there's another way at this point, I'd love to hear it. There is nothing that's going to fix America without a complete reset all the way around. All the way around. Get rid of these judges, get rid of these rhinos, get rid of these Democrats. Now we're talking about full-on martial law. Before it was limited just to deal with the newcomers. Now with what we're seeing, now it may take full-on martial law. Oh, Barry, you're being crazy. Really? Really? Am I being crazy? What do you think is going to happen? I hear people talking right now. I'm sorry, my dog's down there. I hear people talking right now who know what they're talking about and saying, we don't have much of a choice left. Your way of life is under attack whether you believe it or not. You can click off this video and say to yourself, those people are whacked MAGA people. They're nuts. Really? Are they really nuts? Where you get people like Michael Flynn. Excuse me, she wants to make an appearance. Michael Flynn saying, we got to do what we got to do. The time is now to take aggressive action against those who abuse their authority as government employees to manipulate the elected leadership of our nation. When you read that, you understand he's talking about war right now. But what he's really saying, and you know as well, this is my little dog Lily, what he's really saying is they've been manipulating things forever. I mean, we those of us who are old enough, and maybe you've seen the videos of a certain president getting his head blown off in Dallas, Texas. And you almost saw another president get his head blown off in Butler, Pennsylvania. They have been doing whatever they can to keep control. And at this point, it's Red Dawn, baby. It is Red Dawn. Let's continue to see what, since we're this far into it, Growing up in an Irish Democrat family, I was only about 5 when JFK was taken out, but our family viewed JFK as a hero. Not just for my family, one of our most beloved presidents found himself manipulated by earlier versions of these same deep state forces. When they attempted to manipulate President Kennedy to launch Air Force planes to attack Cuba after the failed invasion, resulting in an open conflict with both Cuba and the Soviet Union. President Kennedy's June 1963 speech at American University declaring his vision of peace with the Soviet Union, he declared himself to be an enemy of this deep state. Sound familiar? Which by all indications then retaliated by participating in his taking out 5 months later. The American deep state is not only a threat to peace, but a threat to the president. This is from a general. I believe he's 5-star. I don't know if he's 5-star or 4-star. But he's now alluding to JFK and what happened to him and saying, now it's on you, bro. They're coming for you. Am I scaring you? Good. Maybe you should be scared if you don't understand. And I know many people are probably right now in the chat saying, pray and prepare. Do both those things. It's not just prayer alone now. Now you got to prepare as well. Let's continue. President Trump has already faced at least 2 assassination attempts. If there's one person who I believe has a character and love for our nation to rid our government of these forces, it is President Trump. After the shooting in Butler, President Trump displayed the type of personal courage that those of us who have served in the military deeply admire. Yeah, he'd be well respected by my father if he was still here. With great affection for the president, I now urge him to risk the wrath of the deep state once again by taking actions to purge enemies of our nation within our agencies and departments. Removing such persons from power is absolutely necessary to achieve the type of peace he described during his campaign and the beginning of his administration. And you know what he means right there. Some of you may have just taken a big gulp. May have just swallowed real hard and went, oh my God, is this where we are? This is where we are. This is where we are right now. I played a song a couple days ago at night. Right here, right now. We're here. Right now. I already know what I'm going to open with tonight when we do the Rumble Jump Over. I'll tell you the song we're going to do. First song, Everyone Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears will be the first song I play tonight. Because what we're seeing is all of this stuff that we've learned through history, those of us who learned history, is right back in our face. From 1963, bam, here you go, right back. Donald Trump, don't go outside anywhere. Be careful. Don't taste anything unless people have, can prove to you. You don't know where the enemies are. So close ranks. Let me ask you a question. What would happen if this time they succeeded? What would happen in this country if, God forbid, this time they succeeded? Where would we be? Yeah, J.D. Vance would be there. He's very capable. But then the vice president, whoever he'd pick, I don't even want to think about that. I don't want to think about how this nation would go completely ripped apart at the seams should that happen. But I guess we need to start thinking about it. As painful as that may be. Let's continue. Once JFK realized he was being manipulated and opposed because he sought peace, he removed Allen Dulles as director of CIA and several of his assistants. I urge President Trump to immediately clean house of any government who had prior knowledge or participated in any way in the Ukraine attack on the Russian Federation strategic bombers, and to go further by immediately declaring an end to any support for the Ukraine war. You just heard Rebecca say the exact same thing. Band-Aid ripped. You're done. No more money. Not a single flipping dime and no more intelligence. And make sure Pete Hegseth has the ability and the people with Tulsi Gabbard to make sure that intelligence spigot is turned off. Trust no one. That sounds drastic, doesn't it? Matter of fact, bring Michael Flynn and let him do it. It says here, declaring in support. President Trump is right. This is not his war. I urge him to recall all open and covert military and other government personnel from Ukraine. Boom. That was the reason for my question to Rebecca. Are you telling me these guys are sitting ducks? You're telling me there's soldiers over there who might just be collateral damage and they may just go poof? Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. You guys need to be back over here tomorrow morning and maybe get on a plane tonight before something happens. He's exactly right. Exactly right. I urge him to have all these personnel interrogated by the FBI. Oh, no. Not Cash Patel and Dan Bongino. But then again, this is a priority. This is the screw Epstein. If you're in a chat and you mention Epstein, you need to just go away. Okay, go away. Now, we're at DEFCON 1. I don't give a shit about Epstein. I urge him to have all these personnel interrogated by the FBI or the military to learn of their possible participation in unauthorized military activities. Any Americans who have aided and abetted Ukraine's attack should be investigated for violation of American law and prosecuted as necessary, i.e. traitors. Treason. I also believe President Trump should distance himself from certain Western leaders as German Chancellor Fred Merz, who have acted and spoken in an irresponsible manner with respect to the Ukraine war. If there are countries in Europe who wish to provide military assistance to Ukraine, that is their concern, and they should not be surprised by Putin's response to their actions against Russia. If such leaders want to lead their nations to war by persisting in such irresponsible behavior, they should go it alone. I think every single one of us believes that. You want a piece of that? Go for it. I saw Starmer from the UK has begun saying, yeah, we're going to get ready for battle stations. Good luck. We're out. Well, you can't be. It's NATO. F NATO and F all you nuts. And guess what? Our national debt, you can have that too. We're hitting a button. We're going to reset. We're going to get rid of all this crap, and we're going to be self-sufficient. We're going to be self-defended, and we're going to make sure that everybody knows we ain't got nothing to do with the stuff you guys are doing over there. And then ramp up as many deportations as you possibly can, which none of this happens without President Trump pulling the pin. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Let's continue. 11. Man, he took some time to write this. I urge President Trump to also distance himself from demonstrated warmongers in our own government. Chief among is U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. Those who love wars fought by others are no friends of America and have no entitlement to be friends of the president. You know the whole thing about keep your enemies closer, but keep the person closer? I forget how it goes. Nah. Tell Lindsey he's not welcome anymore. And then finally, I urge the American people, this is to you, to stand prayerfully and resolutely with President Trump as he cleans house and acts in pursuit of the type of peace which President Kennedy embraced. Peace is not the normal state of man. Now, let me stop there. You understand that? Peace is not what we're used to. Ever since we were cavemen, we were walking around with clubs and we were dragging women behind us and beating everything else that's in our way. As men, we were conquerors. We set out, we want that. I want what you got. We're going to have to kill all your people and take your wives and your food and everything else. Now you answer to me. And we just kept fighting because peace. You do you. You do you. We'll be okay over here. It was not something that's normal. It's in our DNA to fight. It's in every single male and a lot of women to fight. Sometimes unprovoked, just because. Hey man, what'd you say to me? You disrespected me. No, I didn't. Oh, I think you disrespected me. I'm going to have to whip your butt. You've heard that many times. Oh, he disrespected me. So you weren't in any danger. You just got disrespected. How does that happen? That happens because the animal inside of us doesn't understand peace. So General Flynn here is telling you, freedom requires a price to be paid by every generation. And it is now time to recommit our nation to vote. So there are people in the chat here who are probably, or were in the chat, I'm like, this is too dark. I'm like, I can't. That's okay. That's okay. Because many of us, guys who have, I don't know, what would you say, fought, protected, taken care of the least of us, understand that there will be men and women who don't want to be part of the conflict. I can't do that. It's okay. If that's your personality, that is fine. I will never, ever make fun of somebody and say, you're a weak-ass wussy. No. Just get behind us and we'll see what we can do to protect you. So if you need people to talk to and say, I'm just not ready for this. I don't know what's coming next. This is scary. This is frightening. I've never envisioned that we could be in thermonuclear war. I could never envision that people in our country would want us to be in a war. I could never envision that people elected in our government would want us to see war. Yep, I understand all of that. But nonetheless, we're here. And so this piece by General Flynn won't get much traction. It won't get millions of likes and millions of views. But it's going to be read by the right people. And the right people, including you, now need to step back and begin thinking to yourself, what is it that we can do? How do we react at this point? Well, buy the necessary things. Get out there and make sure you have the necessary protection. Make sure that you are prepared financially. Make sure that you have food. Make sure that you have water. Make sure that you have God. Those are the things you can do right now, wherever you are. Begin getting ready. And I'm not doing this from a doomsaying perspective. You just heard, go back, Putin saying, yeah, it's coming. Can't tell you when or where. It's coming. You've heard from Rebecca, who's involved in intelligence. I'm sure Steve Bannon's talking about it. I'm sure everybody's talking about it. You hear Michael Flynn. It's coming. You would be, remiss in not preparing yourself. And the thing that's stopping you from preparing is fear and disbelief that we're here. I mean, think about it from this perspective. Those of you who have gone through a divorce. And I kind of mentioned it yesterday to somebody. Oh no, it was a meeting today. I was with Ashley. And I said, everybody loves when you get married. Oh, that was great. And you never foresee what happens in the future. And those two things that some people don't even like to talk about is, what if one of you dies? What's life look like for the other person? And the other one is divorce. Unless you got a prenup or something, but I'm talking about most people. You don't think about that. You're walking down the aisle, everything's fine, it's dandy. Oh, we're gonna have a great life together. I love you. And then one day, the nuke drops. It drops right in your lap. Whether you fired it or she fired it or they fired it, whatever, that nuke drops. And nobody, unless they've done the prenup thing, but that's just money. There's no prenup for your mind and your heart. So even if it's like, here's your check, doesn't do anything for here and here. because nobody is prepared for the eventuality of something like that happening. So think of it this way. You have another opportunity. President Trump has now given you an opportunity. President Trump has now said, you know what, Fred? Get ready. Shit's about to go down. I can't help you. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what Russia's going to do. I don't know what Ukraine's going to do. I don't even know what our internal government's going to do. But I know what you can do. And I'm telling you, and Michael Flynn's telling you, get ready. I can't believe I just saw that post. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. The other thing you can do is make sure you get on X and see the breaking news as it's happened. Begin following this stuff and make sure you're abreast of what's going on. That's going to be very, very important to know when it hits the fan. It's not an if. Our media may not cover it all, but then you need, like a tidal wave and how it may be an earthquake over in Samoa, and then it comes across, and then boom, it hits the big wave off the coast of California or the Atlantic Ocean. Well, we're about to see a big giant ass tsunami. It's going to open up probably in Ukraine, but the waves are going to go that way. Does it bother me? Yeah, it bothers me. It bothers me a whole lot. Especially if communications go down and we can't do certain things. Wow. I'll read that in a second. Let me hear what you guys are saying. Yeah, it's not an if, it's when at this point. The Bible is unfolding right in front of us. Oh, yes, it is. Flynn knows what the deal is. Yes, Graham and who? Dick Durbin should be arrested on the tarmac. Trump has a right to audit all the federal agencies. He's the CEO of this company called America. Barry, thank you for this very information to the podcast. The interview with Rebecca was sobering, but I'm so happy you brought her on. It's funny. You have a plan. You saw the thumbnail, and it's too funny. My thumbnail was, and we just put it up there. This was my thumbnail, as you saw. And I was going to talk about the Doge hearing and play the Doge hearing, and we were going to go through this, and we were going to talk about what they were doing and everything. And I didn't know at the time that this would supplant Doge. You guys be like, hey, I don't even know what the poll said. What did the poll say? The poll said 66% wanted me to continue with the hearing. So I'll put it on. It looks like there's still an hour left to it. Let's see here. Okay, this is Ronnie. Some of you guys want to help Ronnie here? Ronnie says, I don't think we're in danger of Putin. See, Ronnie, you're missing it. Let me or General Flynn or maybe even some people in the audience just reiterate to you. No, I don't think Putin is going to blow up something in the United States. The danger we have is what are the deep state going to do? Here and over there. First you have to realize it exists. Then you have to wonder, what the hell are these nuts going to do? They're not going to take it lying down. It's not like Trump can send an email and say, hey, you're done, come home. You don't even know how much money they've transferred to different holes in the ground that they can use to then subvert what President Trump said. This is wide-ranging. Who knows what's in warehouses and what's stored here and what's stored there. Remember, they were taking trillions of dollars over the last few years that nobody knows where it went. Remember, the Pentagon can't even account. Don't even know. $2 trillion just disappeared. It didn't disappear. Somebody knows exactly what they bought with that money. And so there could be bunkers, and there can be caves, and there can be warehouses with all kinds of stuff in it that none of us actually knows where it is. The deep state is the enemy. The deep state is funding Ukraine. They sure are. We are all in danger of the deep state, in which we can't even identify who they are. We're not even allowed really to talk about it. I'm telling you right now, you check back tonight before we go live, and I bet you're going to hear me say, they dinged my video again. And I didn't show anything at all. Changing my vote to no, keep going, Barry. I don't have much more to tell you. I mean, like I said, I planned, we brought Rebecca on, and we see where things are going. And yes, you are completely right. And I'll put it this way. I'll take this last comment because I agree 100%. Trump is not scared. He is not scared. Not one, not even this big. But that doesn't mean you can't be gotten to. Yeah, he's attending the summer soiree tonight, whatever the hell that is. We'll be watching it. So I plan on going live tonight at 6:30 or 7. But as I'm looking at this, there's 66% of people still want to see what the rest of the hearing. So I'm going to play that, and then when I play that, then I'll come back and put on the after party. So we got about an hour and a half to go, but I won't be on screen. So let me do this now in case any of you have to leave. And where are we? I'm going to do super chats now because I don't know if you'll be here, if you're staying for the rest of the hearing. 66% of you said, let's go roll the hearing, so I will roll it. But let's see, what do we got here? Just protect yourself. I'm not trying to be a doomsayer. I'm just telling you, this isn't a good place for us, and just make sure you're okay. Tell people, have a plan. If crap hits the fan, that's the best thing. All right, where are we here? Okay, let's go. Thank you. I've listened to every podcast since March. I've kept me company out here in rural Kansas on days I don't see people. I'm leaving the post office on Friday. I'm excited for the future. Congratulations. Big Cat, I always try to after party with fanfare. Thank you very much. Richard Gartner, always bring the content. Thanks, Barry. Sometimes, even when I have stuff planned, we go off. We go off on a tangent because I'm telling you, Ash and I were talking today, and we're going to have Rebecca on at 2:30. I'm going to play this, and I got this video. I've got Howard Letnick, and this is specifically why I have to have multiple setups and get into an office, because some of you may say, hey, listen, I don't want to see the hearing. Let's just keep talking. But then some people want to hit the hearing, so I could say, all right, go to this video on YouTube. That's going to be playing as well. So that's the reason behind it, and you guys are basically underscoring that for me right now. Q Politics, how many times do I have to tell you stop listening to whiners? People are only happy when complaining. I think that you're talking about the people I talked about in terms of complaining about the music. Thank you for that. Buddy Sanders, President Trump has many gay people in his administration, including Richard Grenell. You're absolutely right. Brian Newland, we the people have to take our Congress back. The Declaration of Independence gives us that power. And the courts. Just another knucklehead, just tip jar leaving for the show. Can't listen to any Dems. I didn't put them on. I cut them. Rafterman, thank you. Rafterman again, thank you. Chapo, Trump should round up bad actors who helped Ukraine and give them to Putin. That would be nice. Musk should shut down Starlink on Ukraine. Exactly. Ed Sloan, we USA are currently at DEFCON 3. I never knew if that was backwards or frontwards. Like, is DEFCON 5 the worst, or is DEFCON 1 the worst? Like, does it go 5, 4, 3, or does it go 1, 2, 3? Fox Den and Learning, thank you. Tilly, how are you? It seems like 3/4 of the government is against us. 3/4 of the government and most of the media. Tommy, how are you? Zelensky's attack has broken subsection of the General Geneva Convention. This was a movie. Dr. Strangelove is exactly what's happening with Peter Sellers and my cousin Slim Pickens, my grandma's first cousin. I remember that movie. I didn't know that was your cousin. Anne Marie, thank you. Fred Smith, President Trump needs a clean house. Seems there are leftover traitors from previous administration. It should be administrations. Some of these people have been there for 30, 40 years. Redeemed Patriot, we are at DEFCON 3. DEFCON 2 is the highest state of readiness of war. So that would mean DEFCON 1 is actually war. Mr. Anderson, they put restrictions in the big, beautiful bill. No AI for 10 years. No restriction on AI for 10 years. You missed that part. Raven Kirkendall, C. Catherine Jayash. Bullshit. Excuse my language. Did I say that out loud? KJP says, I'm no longer a Democrat and buy my book. Yeah, right. I'll talk about that tonight. Tommy Radcliffe, it's Dr. Strangelove, this attack. What's next? Indeed. Tricia, God is our refuge and our strength are very present in help in trouble. Pray and have faith, America shall be saved. Yes. Caleb McIntosh, Putin will die by the sword. Kim Clement prophecy. Penny Corridor, fighting can be a good thing, but fighting is only a good thing when it's something worth fighting for. Freedom. I like that. Brat Girl, everyone should be sharing this info on every platform we're on. If no one believes us, at least we can say we warned them. 100% believe you. Maximus, I keep telling you, is in law enforcement, and he says we've been testing our mutual aid system. I wonder what that is. Wonder what mutual aid system is. That would be very interesting to know, Maximus. Let's see, I'm getting messages from Ashley. No, from Ashley and SV. I gotta post this. This is insane. Wait a minute. I'm probably gonna have to download this video because you probably can't even imagine that this idiot would say this. So I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but we all have to listen to this insane man who's obviously being told by people to do certain things. We're talking about Vladimir Zelensky. Hold on, let me put my ears back on so I can hear this. Thanks, Ashley, for sending this over. All right, let's listen to it first. See if they... Wait a minute. Hold on, I got to see what's playing at this point. Hold on. Wait a minute, I got something playing in my ear, so I just want to stop that. What? 1 second. Hold on, something's playing in my ear. All right, so Ashley, okay, 1 second. All right, let's listen to what this little man has to say here.
My proposal, we offer, which I believe our partners can support. Is that we propose to the Russians a ceasefire until the leaders meet. We offer a meeting any day starting from Monday. Why ceasefire before leaders meet? Because we can meet, and if there is no mutual understanding, if there is not desire for de-escalation, if there is no desire and vision how to put an end to it, then the ceasefire will be over the same day. It can be initiated unilaterally by the Russians. Please feel free to do so.
So, I don't know what he's talking about now. He's talking about doing a de-escalation, but that the Russians can do it. So here was the actual tweet that Ashley sent me. Hold on, let me pull it up. 1 second. Excuse me, I have a dog down here who's like running around trying to get my attention. Here, let's see here. What's this say here? All right, so this is the tweet. Zelensky now proposes a ceasefire after an all-out assault on Russia earlier this week and following his Lindsey Graham meeting. This comes as Putin told Trump today that Russia has to respond to the military attacks by Ukraine. Sabotage. I wouldn't trust this guy at all. Nope. I hope he doesn't trust him. Hope he doesn't trust him at all. Yeah, just bets off. You did something stupid. You're gonna have to pay for it. You're gonna have to. It's still gonna happen, even if they agree to a ceasefire. They're gonna take a shot at you. Might as well get ready for it. He's a total moron for doing that. All right, so I'm going to roll the rest of the hearing. I'm going to break, make sure I've saved it at the right point, and then I'm going to roll with it. And then I'll see you guys tonight at actually 6:30, because I don't know what this summertime soiree is, but we'll see you at 6:30. But hold on, I'm going to play the rest of the hearing.
Welcome back to Fanfare.
In front of you so that it is on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 5 minutes has expired, and we would ask that you please wrap it up quickly. I now recognize Mr. Walter for his opening statement.
Thank you. Chairwoman Green, Ranking Member Stansbury, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the honor of testifying. I'm president of the Capital Research Center, where we study nonprofits every day. Americans are proud of our nonprofit sector, which has long led the world because they love real charities that actually help people here and abroad. They don't think of the nonprofit sector as the plaything of billionaires and politicians. Yet, all too often, that is the reality of our non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. Far too many NGOs are really BGOs, basically government organizations, for two reasons. First, they get most of their money from government, not citizens. Second, they serve the big government political agenda that fights to centralize power in Washington for the benefit of the left's preferred political party. From countless egregious examples, consider the Solidarity Center. This nonprofit child of the country's largest union federation, the AFL-CIO, is chaired by the AFL-CIO's president. Solidarity Center doesn't just boost unions, it also champions DEI and climate justice. It's suing the current administration because Doge recommended its federal gravy train end. It received over $86 million from the federal government since 2008. 61 of that $86 million was given under President Biden, doubtless encouraged by the 3 Solidarity employees who went into the Labor Department. Solidarity receives 99% of its revenue from American taxpayers. It serves the AFL-CIO, which gave 86% of its 2024 political donations to Democrats. Today's Democratic witness, Diane Yentl, is yet another powerful example of nonprofits serving big government. One of her typical tweets attacked Doge and defended the Vera Institute of Justice, which in 2023 received 79% of its revenues from government. It's a hard-left, Soros-backed group whose priorities oppose the views of Americans' Democratic majority by advocating soft-on-crime policies and defending illegal aliens. Its biggest vendor in its last IRS filing was Blue State Digital, which began life as Barack Obama's digital campaign team and now serves the entire left. Ms. Yentl was hired by Obama at HUD, and President Biden considered her for a cabinet post. Her previous job was leading the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, an NGO that advocates for ever more federal spending by HUD and uses identity politics to justify its agenda. In her current job, leading the National Council of Nonprofits, Ms. Gentle quickly sued the Trump administration over budget cuts. What lawyers did she turn to? The Democracy Forward Foundation, whose board includes President Biden's notorious chief of staff, Ron Klain, and is chaired by Mark Elias, the Democratic super lawyer. Ms. Gentle claims the Republican tax bill would have handed, quote, unchecked power to the Trump administration to punish nonprofit orgs that don't fall in line with its ideology by labeling them as terrorist-supporting groups. Nonsense. As an honest left-leaning law professor explained in the Chronicle of Philanthropy, quote, a despot seeking to silence nonprofits would be weakened, not empowered by the legislation. No wonder nonprofit expert Bill Shambra warned that Yentl's partisanship at a major nonprofit membership group may erode public support for nonprofits by suggesting, quote, nonprofits are just like any other major institution of American society, fighting fiercely to maintain the status quo against necessary reforms. It's understandable, though not admirable, that status quo nonprofit leaders are scared by Doge examining their government funding. They'll use an Urban Institute study designed to scare you members of Congress with statistics like government grants support nonprofits in every congressional district. No one explains why it's wonderful that so many nonprofits are as dependent on government cash as a meth addict is on methamphetamine. The same study stresses how larger nonprofits especially hoover up tax dollars. But while big nonprofits are often less effective at helping people compared to smaller neighborhood groups, they certainly are more powerful at lobbying government in the service of bigger government and the left. They're also great at suing government. This politicized pseudo-charity aimed at bloating government and seizing political power goes back decades, as when the Obama administration took money from Catholic charities and gave it to Planned Parenthood. This is a simple, ugly story of tax dollars, cronyism, and political scheming camouflaged by invoking the moving stories of the real heroes of America's charitable sector. Please don't fall for the sob stories.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. I now recognize Mr. Krikorian for his opening statement.
Thank you. During the 4 years of the Biden administration, the United States devoted significant taxpayer funds to facilitating illegal immigration. There's been much reporting about the role of NGOs in this process after the illegal immigrants crossed into the United States. But what the center has examined is what happened before the migrants got to the Rio Grande. In other words, how NGOs and UN agencies were paid by U.S. taxpayers to facilitate the illegal movement of migrants through South and Central America and Mexico. We've documented a large UN NGO support network from field reporting and annual reports from this group called the Regional Refugee and Migrant Response Plan. This network consisted of way stations all along Latin American illegal migration routes that made it possible for millions of foreign nationals from as many as 180 countries to illegally get to the U.S. border, in part funded by U.S. taxpayers. Some of these funds were provided directly to NGOs by the State Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, or USAID. Other funding was sent indirectly through our funding of UN agencies, which then in turn funded NGOs. This often was described as merely humanitarian assistance to people who would travel anyway. But in reality, this amounted to a coordinated, well-funded assistance designed to undermine U.S. immigration laws. Starting in South America and Central America, NGOs handed out millions of dollars worth of supplies designed to assist recipients in their plans to illegally breach the borders, not just of the United States, but of half a dozen countries along the way. Just a couple of examples. In Colombia, in northwestern Colombia, the center found NGOs working in coordination with a paramilitary drug smuggling group called Clan del Golfo, also known as the Gaitanistas, which controlled the smuggling routes in those areas. To get an idea of how this worked, there's a town in northwest Colombia called Necoclí, which is a major staging area for migrants trying to cross the Gulf of Urabá to get to the jumping off point for trips through the Darien Gap. Well, our researcher went to Nick Oakley and found what amounted to kind of a swap meet or farmer's market of NGO groups with booths of UN and NGO organizations there to provide assistance. Just a couple of examples, the Florida-based NGO Cadena was set up in a booth next to the Silver Spring-based Adventist Development and Relief Agency, and there were many other U.S.-based and overseas-based groups there. And they provided a variety of services, assistance on how to make it through the Darien Gap, food, dry socks, backpacks, etc. When they crossed that Gulf of Urabá, they're still in Colombia, and they get to the village of Akandi, which is where you jump off to go to the Darien Gap. And there, the NGO UN group, the camp, was in a camp where the security for the camp was provided by this drug smuggling gang. In other words, and it's not clear to us, we don't have evidence of this, but it seems likely to me that NGOs and the UN paid for the security by paying this drug smuggling gang for security for this jumping off point. After they pass through Central America, they get to southern Mexico, cross from Guatemala into southern Mexico, and there, Tapachula is the town that is the first place you get to. And what we found there was a large, kind of a one-stop shop illegal immigration mall where the UN agencies and the NGOs were supposed to be housing them. This was under construction when we went last fall. And it was only one of many similar camps. There's several in northern Mexico as well. Especially curious in Tapachula was an NGO funded by the UN, which means funded by the US, which provided repressed memory therapy for illegal immigrants who had been rejected for asylum by Mexico, which they do in order to be able to make it through Mexico without hassles. They had been rejected. They went to the repressed memory therapy and got a certificate that they had forgotten about the persecution they had suffered, and now they remembered it, and so they went to their appeal and they got their asylum status. So throughout Latin America, these networks funded in part by U.S. taxpayers have made this flow of illegal immigrants possible. And yet oversight has remained absent, and Congress has not cracked down and insisted that recipients of funding not engage in promoting illegal immigration.
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian. I now recognize Mr. Turner for his opening statement.
Madam Chairman Green, Ranking Member Stansberry, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee today. Three words often heard in tandem with Doge are waste, fraud, and abuse, and I hope my testimony can shed light on the third word, abuse. I started my organization, Power the Future, to advocate for energy workers in rural America, and it has come to light that on the other side of that fight, the climate movement received billions from taxpayers, and that is the abuse I wish to highlight. The 2022 Inflation Reduction Act set aside hundreds of billions of dollars for the green agenda. The Environmental Protection Agency received tens of billions. As reported by the Washington Free Beacon, a staffer from an environmental group called the Coalition for Green Capital named Jahai Weiss joined the Biden EPA to direct $27 billion in green funding. For context, $27 billion is larger than the budgets of the Departments of Treasury, Interior, and Commerce. Yet Mr. Jahai went through no confirmation process, and his decision to direct tens of billions to organizations of his choosing had no congressional oversight. And conveniently, under his tenure in this new EPA role, $5 billion was granted to his former organization, the Coalition for Green Capital. The abundance of green dollars created a new pernicious mechanism: create a group for the sole purpose of getting government grants. For example, Power Forward Communities was only a few months old when it applied for and received nearly $9 billion to distribute at its own discretion. And one lucky recipient was an organization affiliated with two-time Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. With only $100 in the bank, this group received $2 billion. Yes, it is legal to create a nonprofit, to get IRS accreditation, apply for and receive government grants, but it is fair to question the process and demand transparency. What does the application for a $9 billion grant look like? Particularly when an organization has no staff, no history in the space, no office, and is only a few months old. A Department of Defense grant of this size would have layers of transparency. A Department of Transportation grant that size would require a bond to guarantee deliverables. Yet it seems that in the name of climate change, unvetted, unelected, unconfirmed bureaucrats require no safeguards. And this is the precedent of pernicious funding. Any future president can announce a slush fund, appoint loyalists to dole it out, and anyone can create a group to get government billions if they know the right people, bypassing that pesky thing called Congress. In his recent Senate hearing, Secretary of State Rubio said, Doge uncovered, for every dollar spent at USAID, only 12 cents was actually received in aid. The rest was spent on overhead, high salaries, dinners, events, travel, raising awareness. You can call it overhead, a better term is grift. But this funding scandal is far worse in context. For at the same time the Biden administration was generously rewarding climate groups with billions, they enacted the most radical energy agenda in history, which punished the American people. Making energy expensive made life expensive. And we saw under the Biden administration record high inflation, skyrocketing price of energy, gas, utilities, food, and consumer goods. It was bad enough to dole out billions, but to do it to the very groups making America unaffordable was a new low even for Washington, D.C. And unless this Congress changes the laws, the mechanisms are still in place to appropriate new funds using a new crisis, forming new groups, skirting Congress, and ripping off the taxpayers. Last week, my organization sent letters to this committee and Attorney General Bondi calling for an investigation into the Biden administration use of AutoPen on green executive orders, asking if Biden himself directed them or if the staff took leniencies. A very severe accusation, but made even more plausible in the light of this hearing: abuse. Abuse of the purse, abuse of the pen, also that climate groups and their political allies could benefit. This is the very worst of Washington, and why the American people have such little trust in government. For our nation to survive, Congress must restore trust in government, end the slush fund abuse, stop the grift, and it is my sincere hope that my appearance here today can help begin the process. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. I now recognize Ms. Yentl for her opening statement.
Chairwoman Green, Ranking Member Stansberry, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to share how America's charitable nonprofits serve communities across the country. From small towns to big cities, in every congressional district and state, nonprofits feed, heal, shelter, and nurture people of all walks of life and every political persuasion. From hospitals to libraries, churches to food banks, from veterans to school children, artists to researchers, charitable nonprofits touch and benefit all Americans all our lives. Nonprofits are local, accountable, transparent, and are nonpartisan by law and in practice. The vast majority of nonprofits are small to mid-sized. 92% have budgets of less than $1 million. Nonprofits step in to fill gaps not met by government or other entities alone. They show up in times of crisis, providing disaster relief, hotlines, and safety from danger, and they meet everyday needs in local communities, from providing childcare and elder care, job training, or essential food and shelter. Simply put, the work of charitable nonprofits improves lives and strengthens communities and the country. Nonprofits represent the best of America, neighbors helping neighbors. Despite this essential work, nonprofits are at risk and under attack by this administration and by some in Congress. Across the country, nonprofits are having federal funding slashed or eliminated due to arbitrary cuts of congressionally approved spending and through reckless and unlawful federal funding freezes by the Trump administration. These actions are causing real harm. Food banks across the country, already struggling with high levels of need, are serving fewer meals due to spending cuts. Nonprofit health clinics have closed, leaving neighbors without access to potentially life-saving care. Nonprofits focused on preventing violence and crime have seen their budgets disappear, putting a stop to critical work. After-school programs have been canceled and school lunch programs are squeezed. Nonprofits that serve young mothers, respond to disasters, help address mental health or substance use, or operate child enrichment programs face funding shortfalls. And the threats to nonprofits are broader than federal funding. Senior members of this administration and some witnesses here today give egregious mischaracterizations of the work of nonprofits, even using dangerous rhetoric to vilify nonprofits. There are repeated threats against nonprofits that hold views that don't align with this administration, from statements calling for the illegal, unilateral revoking of their tax-exempt status to attempted takeovers, audits, and even threats of civil or criminal investigations by the federal government, not for any wrongdoing, but for doing work at odds with the administration's ideology. The administration's targeting of organizations and institutions with which it disagrees is a fundamentally un-American action and something that should concern us all. These actions aren't about government efficiency or about reform. They are attempted censorship disguised as accountability. This is weaponization of the federal government to chill dissent, and it is wrong, whatever party is in control. In a functioning and healthy democracy, nonprofits must be free to identify and meet local needs without political interference, fear of retribution, or facing punishment for holding a different point of view from those in political power. Nonprofits are the backbone of our country, providing critical support to communities and saving lives. Defending and supporting their essential work shouldn't divide us along political lines. It should unite us as Americans. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to your questions.
I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. The American people definitely support nonprofits, but what they don't support is corruption, waste, fraud, and abuse. In 2024, right as the Biden administration was leaving office, the Democrats finalized the awards that amounted to $20 billion under its greenhouse gas reduction slush fund to launder government funding to 8 politically aligned nonprofits, several of which were newly created solely to join in on the massive grift. One of these awardees is Power Forward. Mr. Turner, you've spent a lot of time diving into leftist green NGOs. Was the NGO Power Forward just created a couple of years ago, yes or no?
Yes.
In fiscal year 2023, did Power Forward report only $100 in revenue on their 990 financial disclosure form?
Yes.
Was Power Forward slated to receive $2 billion in federal funding?
Yes, that's 20 million times revenue.
Is it commonplace for completely new nonprofits with zero track record to receive a multi-billion-dollar grant from the federal government?
There is no private entity that would give an organization 20 million times revenue after a few months of creation. Only government is stupid enough to do that.
That's right. There's no business in America could get that loan from a bank. Is Rewiring America part of the same NGO coalition as Power Forward?
Part of the same coalition, yes.
Did Rewiring America hire Stacey Abrams?
She's affiliated with the organization. It's unclear in what capacity, but yes.
Is she an energy expert?
No.
So it's pretty eye-opening that a brand new politically connected group got such a massive federal grant. Rewiring America hired Stacey Abrams, as far as we know, a twice-failed candidate for Georgia governor and well-known Democrat activist, even though she has little to no knowledge of energy policy. But the leader of Power Forward praised Abrams for playing a pivotal role in securing these billions. Notably, Abrams' PAC spent over $126 million on Democrat campaigns over the last 5 years. This recirculation of taxpayer funds literally is the Democrats' circle of life. Mr. Krikorian, we witnessed the worst border immigration catastrophe under the Biden administration. It seems to me that many immigration-oriented NGOs have double-dipped their hands in taxpayer money. My first question is, how influential were the American taxpayer-funded NGOs at facilitating the movement of illegal aliens to and through our country's borders?
Extremely influential. Now, some of this would have happened anyway because of the Biden administration's invitation to mass illegal immigration. But the invitation required some means of this happening, some means of doing it. And so what it did is the taxpayer money essentially turned the illegal immigration crisis up to 11. It would have existed otherwise, but it was significantly magnified by this government funding.
By the Biden's administration policies.
Right.
You've mentioned that the United Nations pay psychologists to help illegal aliens reverse asylum denials on appeal. Specifically, tax dollars go to the UN, which directs and pays psychologists to help illegal aliens unearth repressed memories of torture, persecution, and human rights violation so that they can legally claim asylum. Is this an intentional effort to subvert our immigration laws by creating fake narratives for asylum seekers?
I can't put myself into someone else's head, but I can't imagine any other plausible way to describe it. And initially, just to be clear, they use this to get Mexican asylum, which they use as a kind of trampoline to get to the United States, and then present those repressed memory documents as part of their evidence when they are in removal proceedings as part of their asylum claims.
And do they provide legal help to apply for asylum claims?
That's inside the United States, so that's beyond the scope of my testimony here.
Thank you. Mr. Walter, you've been investigating NGO funding sources for a long time. Do you know of other examples of former elected or appointed officials in the NGO sector securing significant federal tax dollars through grants or contracts?
We've had mentioned here the $2 billion slush fund, and of course, the OMB and HUD director, Sean Donovan, has been mixed up in that. And then, of course, there have been public reports as well about the millions of dollars that the wife of Senator Sheldon Whitehouse has received from NGOs whose legislation he's helped push.
Yeah, thank you. My time has expired, and thank you all for being here. I now recognize Ranking Member Stansbury for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman. And I want to welcome back some of our guests here today. Mr. Krikorian, I recognize you from last summer when you came to testify. Welcome back. Just want to clarify, you served on the board for Project 2025, is that correct?
I don't think I was on a board. We were one of the advisors for it, but yes.
So yes, you served in an advisory role on Project 2025. I appreciate that. And Mr. Walter, I just want to clarify a few things about Capital Research Center. This is the organization that acted as a fiscal sponsor for Ginny Thomas's nonprofit, correct?
For a project that she was one of many people involved with, yes.
Yes, and this is Ginny Thomas, Justice Clarence Thomas's wife. And my understanding is that there was a donor-advised fund that was the primary donor to that funding under your fiscal sponsorship. In fact, it looks like about $400,000 was channeled through your organization. And if I'm correct, based on what I see here, the primary donors are the Koch brothers, the Searles, the Mercers, and Leonard Leo. And some of you may recall Leonard Leo because, of course, he's at the center of many of the big issues around Supreme Court ethics, but also you all may recognize him because last week Donald Trump called him a sleazebag who probably hates America for his interference in the judiciary and his efforts to try to undermine what Donald Trump is trying to do. So a very interesting cast of characters indeed. And Mr. Turner, as I understand it, you're a former employee of the Koch Institute, correctly?
Yes.
All right. So I think, these are always very interesting hearings we have in the Oversight Committee. We have some retreads of some witnesses who've been here before, all of which are participants in organizations that were involved in Project 2025 that are funded through the same dark money networks and organizations of the Koch brothers and Leonard Leo and the Searles and the Mercers who fund all this stuff, Project 2025, the stuff that's happening in front of the Supreme Court, rolling back our rights, that helped to get, over 70 Project 2025 authors placed in the administration, acting in high-level roles right now that are bringing cases in front of the Supreme Court, undermining our democracy, and which are attacking organizations who are working on civil society programs.